The kid gets a jump scare when the little princess calls out to him. Her name's Lanavel, and right now, in this exact damn moment, he really wants to smash her face in. This bai is the one who ruined his whole damn life. But the cursed hoe is all hyped up, yanking the curtain open and rambling about the kingdom he's stuck in now. And she's even straight up trying to seduce him. And even though our boys wants to murder her, deep down the bastard still wants to break her spine too. Pissed off at himself for still being attracted to her, he snaps at her to wipe that goddamn smile off her face, which leaves her kinda awkward and embarrassed. She was way too happy for someone who just kidnapped a person. The princess doesn't get why he's so aggressive and mumbles a lame apology. Then suddenly a soldier barges in saying the king wants to see the new summoned guy. But the protagonist just goes, if the king wants to see me, then he can drag his ass over here, cause this nigga is going to be seated waiting for him. In a split second, the space warps and some woman appears right behind him, telling him he needs to be more modest and humble. He's still processing with the truck while she introduces herself as the instructor who's here to guide him, since he got a big fat F in personality score. Truth is, the protagonist has already been summoned once before, solo. He crossed the entire damn kingdom alone, slaughtering countless monsters, blew up the Demon King's door and stood face to face with him. Before they even fought, he still clowned on the guy, saying he was a dumbass for sending so many people to attack him. He'd already wiped out all the demon's companions and now he was stronger than ever with that extra XP. The Demon King gets pissed and charges them. Boom. Explosion in the room, and the trash got folded easily. Then the Demon King asks if all that rage and power comes from losing all his friends. Protagonist just goes, nah, this strength is just from training. I don't give a fuck about those people. The demon finds that weird and then dies. Protagonist is left confused like, wait, it's really over just like that. He starts celebrating finally getting out of this fantasy bullshit world when suddenly a girl wrapped in purple aura appears, praises him, says that together with the comrades he learned so much. He finally saved the world, and now they're going to check his score. Combat power, S. Personality, F. Why? Because he murdered all of his companions, who were completely normal. The sword princess with the giant thighs, dead. The gorgeous elf queen, dead. Even the wise healer chick, dead. He didn't spare a single woman. Truth is, he killed everybody because they were slowing him down. He even says the sword queen deserved it, because he accidentally saw her naked once and she tried to kill him over it. But the spirit just says he failed and dips. He vanishes through the portal, leaving only items behind. And that's how he got resummoned back to day one. Now we're back with the thick-thighed director lady, who says she's here to make sure he doesn't end up the same fucked-up way in this life. She disappears, warning she'll be watching his every move, while he's screaming like, what the hell is this shit about improving my personality? The princess is there pretending to be worried about him, but he knows damn well this bitch isn't gonna fix jack shit. Whoever this group that's trying to train him for some reason, they've got enough power to yeet him back into the past. So for now, he's gonna have to cooperate, just a tiny bit. His grudge against the princess even softened a little when he realized this hoe doesn't actually have any real power either. Her only power is between her legs and the big manospheres she carries. On the way to see the king, he's already scheming about how he's gonna demand a shit ton of stuff, since this time he's literally the only person who can save their world and he knows it. But weirdly, the knight walking in front hears his thoughts and tells him to watch his damn mouth. Protagonist doesn't care, tells him to throw a punch if he's mad. Next second, he feels something off and some dude appears in front and actually lands the so-called punch. The princess yells at Sir Alex to be careful, while the guy just grins and says not to worry, he's gonna take real good care of this kid. Okay, Diddy. But the protagonist knows exactly what these niggas are like. They treated him like trash with violence the whole last life. So before they turn him into a slave again, he's handling this right now. This isn't about ethics, it's self-defense. He throws an attack, but it only rips the guy's pants open. The knight freaks out and the kid goes, shame, I didn't cut it clean off. He's dying to mess this bastard's life up, because this is the same guy who messed him over in the previous life. The guy storms off pissed, while the protagonist thinks, even though he lost the muscle, he still remembers every single thing he learned in those last 10 years. And with that, the protagonist finally comes face to face with the king. And there was Kang Han-soo right in front of the royalty of that world. The old bearded man with a crown had a very funny face, resembling Santa Claus. Kang Han-soo even mocks the guy, saying that his expression was like a dumpling. Rumors said that the old man went to all the wars when he was younger, but now he had become a true softie. There were many people staring at Hero Nim with ugly faces, seeming to hate him. The soldier then informs Kang Han-soo that he was in the presence of royalty. It hadn't been very well calculated, but the first time, the boy respectfully greeted the majesty. Now Hero Nim already knew the future and wouldn't need to see the good side of the dumpling-faced man, who would be killed a few moments later. The boy recalled some memories of the instructor asking him to bow and saying she was eager for his spiritual growth in the aquatic realm. Looking angry, Kang Han-soo accepted that the theme of that day was modesty. He would become an ocean and drown all the annoying people in the place. He then introduced himself, saying he was grateful for the king's hospitality. All those people were impressed to see how polite the kid was and how well he understood fancy rules, being completely the opposite of what the people expected. With 10 years in the fantasy world, he had learned that through the force of hatred, as he had to familiarize himself with the local culture. King Santa Claus soon began to gaze at the little girl who was there. And then he praised Lanovel for doing a great job, leaving her completely grateful. After that, he asked hero Nim if he could see his abilities. Upon checking his status, Kang Han-soo realized that everything was the same as the first time. That purple panel displayed all his most relevant information. If the boy repeated an action several times, it would turn into a skill that could be enhanced for greater efficiency, and at that moment, his rank was A. But his vigor and assassination had changed, being at level F. This had been due to the courage test from the Sword King, Alex. Upon learning this information, Kang Han-soo seemed a bit sad. His level and even his skills had been reset to the beginning. After showing the king that his job was rank 1 hero, the boy was asked to talk about the details of a savior if he knew. He then replied that it was an experience bonus of approximately 500%. Upon hearing this, the king was completely astonished by this absurdly high percentage. Whether a decade ago or at that moment, this was a very loud reaction, and it couldn't be any different. Because regardless of talent, Kang Han-soo could grow 5 times faster than other people. If he did anything for an hour, it would be the same as quintuple that. This was the cheating ability of the legendary hero Nim. Everyone there was completely impressed with Kang Han-soo's extremely high experience bonus. Suddenly, the king shouted the name of the chosen hero Nim. He began to say that the crisis was taking over that country, and after killing some demons, the boy would have to fulfill a hard mission, which was to defeat the feared demon King Pidanar. The boy had no desire to fulfill this mission and wanted money in exchange for it, but soon regretted those thoughts as there were more important things than that. Even without the demon king, the problems of that country were many, and that monarch was a true softie who only blamed other things for the problems without doing anything. Kang Han-soo took a deep breath and thought about being modest, as he was now an ocean of grace, unable to express such sensible opinions. So he asked the Majesty how much support he would receive to complete such a mission. King Santa Claus was a bit confused by this question, and he replied that just by summoning the boy to save humanity from that world was already the greatest support they could give. Kang Han-soo, upon hearing this, began to move, leaving the old man furious. He quickly informed that he would refuse the mission and that those people should find another hero to save them. This left everyone there completely stunned and agape, including the king. The crisis of that country was definitely not the boy's concern. Such attitudes from those people towards a true hero were wrong, as they should have knelt and begged, but instead, they were being annoying. Based on these arguments, Kang Han-soo draws the attention of the old rain cake, and he claims not to be a natural citizen of that mediocre country. That guy becomes very enraged by the way Kang Han-soo was speaking to the Majesty. The boy then throws a sharp object towards the man's forehead. Lanovel watched the scene, wide-eyed and quite nervous, while the kid seemed calm. Kang Han-soo couldn't pierce the man like in the past and should have hardened his heart to then aim right at his eye. The soldiers, seeing that the boy was a tremendous threat, began to charge at him with the intent to kill. Upon realizing this, the hero Nim provokes the subordinates with a rather mocking expression. Such guerrillas thought that boy was a tremendous lunatic. If the king died, the prince could replace him, and if he also passed away, surely the princess would take the throne, and if there wasn't one, a distant relative would likely step in. The soldier was getting closer and closer to the boy while he gave these justifications. In a few moments, a spear was already well positioned at his throat, but if the hero died, it would be a question of who would replace him. How they would cut the throat of the demon king without a heroic savior was a mystery. There was no reason for the boy to treat those savages with modesty, as they were pigs that crawled back when left alone. Leaving the boy unsupported was like someone simply throwing a dog somewhere in the hunt and expecting it to fend for itself. This, compared to the demon king, demonstrated how he showed himself to be a conscious knight for never leaving him empty-handed. Every time Kang Han-soo defeated one of his subordinates, he was rewarded, and sometimes so many rewards were given that they became problems. The boy had become a hero due to some huge miscalculation, but these guys could never kill him, and even if there was a certain risk in that, he wouldn't worry about that fantasy world collapsing. If he died there was no guarantee of an afterlife, but there was a catch to all of this. The Majesty should have something to say regarding all these facts, but he merely explains to the hero that he had summoned him to protect his country. He had ordered that magical catalysts of various types be purchased and also instructed Lanovel to call him to that world. But the kid seemed unconcerned with the king's great sacrifices. He then became quite nervous, saying that the boy belonged to that kingdom. At that exact moment, both lost their heads due to extreme nervousness. The boy even used a parable to explain that he was not the kingdom's possession, as it was not a fish caught by its fishermen. After that, he threatens the king and his kingdom in a very malicious way. This leaves the old man with his Santa Claus face, very furious. That woman also seemed very angry with the words and threats made by the cheeky boy. The kingdom's population expressed a rather disappointing expression while observing all of that. Suddenly, Kang Han-soo raises his index finger. He then informs that he would go to a country that treated a hero appropriately, as it was useless to try to stop him since he wouldn't lift a finger. At the moment the truth was revealed, everyone would know that the monarch oppressed humanity's hope, leading the entire kingdom to its end. And this would include all the supporters of the stupid king, according to Kang Han-soo. This pronouncement from the boy left everyone present dumbfounded due to the impact of his words. The king was dying of embarrassment, looking quite regretful. Then he decides to ask Hero Nim what kind of support he would need to successfully complete the mission and save his kingdom. Kang Han-soo, upon hearing this, becomes happy, giving a sly smile. The boy then asks for various things like the highest quality food and room service, leaving the king quite confused. But he merely confirms wanting all these unnecessary luxuries, leaving the Santa Claus king with a dumbfounded expression, unable to believe these silly requests. Suddenly, Kang Han-soo informs that he has one more thing to ask. He wanted to see the money immediately. Such a request leaves the old man even more furious, with a disbelieving expression. An RPG that has already been completed is doomed to be boring, and thus the protagonist would use a cheat code to walk along the flowery path. After a few moments, we return to the grand castle of the Santa Claus king. The instructor was disappointed to learn that the boy had caused yet another incident and uses a parable to explain this disappointment as usual. The king, who had provided him financial support, would continue asking for more things, and for that reason, the boy's backpack would rot due to his greed. Thus, even if he won, he would have to face a significant loss. If she had more time, she would have intervened, but the enormous number of students was keeping her busy during all those moments. The mill owner thought that his production would always grow in his favor, but Kang Han-soo was not the only candidate to be the hero of that people. There were already many students who had graduated. All the heroes who had returned to Earth safely were living happily while helping neighbors in need. That boy definitely needed to try harder, according to the instructor. Kang Han so soon began to think about the parable used by the woman and that he was not the only human to go to that fantasy world. This meant that they were using students with 8th grade syndrome as a way to train them to be true heroes. An educational facility on a dimensional scale made for just one person was so stupid that the boy's sense of reality couldn't keep up. Suddenly, someone arrived asking if anything was bothering the hero Nim. It was Lanivel, looking quite worried about the boy's state. But Kang Han-soo seemed to pay more attention to something else. Then the kid freaked out, hitting the girl with a pillow, asking her not to talk to him that way. She had been glued to him since the day before and only left at bedtime. If this were in the past, his heart would race, but the moral lessons had already been enough. Kang Han so then expressed his concern, asking Lanivel if she was sure he was the only summoned hero in that world, receiving an affirmative response. The instructor said she was worried because of the enormous number of students traveling to defeat the Demon King, but in that world, the only one was the boy. This made the protagonist think about the possible existence of parallel worlds. Perhaps there were more identical fantasy planets regarding the number of students, just like an offline RPG that could be enjoyed alone. This made everything even more absurd, but the boy decided to let it all go for now since he had to think of a way to return to Earth as quickly as possible. The graduates had returned and were living happily, having no rules preventing them from doing so as well. Based on this, Kang Han-soo asked Lanivel to follow him, receiving an affirmative response. Amid so many problems, he finally got plenty of help, and this had to be used completely without hesitation. Before opening the national treasure to provide financial support to the hero, the king informed that there was a condition. Lanivel would have to manage all the money given to Kang Han-soo. He merely pretended that nothing had happened, as he would do the same thing as that little rain cake. After receiving all the money, the duo of friends decided to take a stroll around the kingdom. Suddenly, Lanivel called the hero Nim with great enthusiasm, asking if she could buy that magical orb that was her dream. Kang Han so soon realized they had chosen the wrong person to take care of all the money. The price of that thing was very high. Since that money wasn't his, the boy allowed the girl to buy it, making her very happy. Indeed, that place was the trading center of the kingdom. The best products arrived there, but due to high fees, the prices became exorbitant. Among all of them, the accessories that had the word magical in their name were the most expensive. This sales methodology was practically the same on Earth when high-tech products were sold more easily compared to others. Suddenly, Lanivel arrived, informing that she had bought the magical orb while Kang Han-soo was reasoning all this. The girl was very happy, showing off her desired accessory. Hero Nim soon noticed that many people were there eyeing that extremely expensive object. With that, he asked Lanivel to follow him quickly, since he had completed his goal, receiving an affirmative response from her. The first time, Kang Han-soo had been walking back and forth in a very flashy school uniform and would not make the same mistake again. After all this, the two friends entered a pretty cool clothing store. Kang Han-soo was leaving the fitting room after trying on a new outfit. Upon seeing him, Lanivel expressed a rather impressed look, even left speechless to describe what she saw in front of her. That outfit had indeed looked very good on the protagonist, according to the girl. He asked her not to flatter him, as he thought he looked horrible. All of that was just to be able to shop comfortably in all places, according to the boy. Indeed, all the people on the street were impressed with his outfit, thinking he was a very rich noble, just as planned. Plebeians wouldn't get into trouble with a bourgeois now if Lanovel could stop shaking and bothering him. He could focus on buying the necessary things. The girl quickly asked the boy where he would be going and if it was really his first time there since he hadn't been to any famous store. Without hesitation, Kang Han-soo responds that he wants to go to the kingdom's black market. Such a cute girl, upon hearing this, is stunned by the hero Nim's desire to participate in illegal auctions. Kang Han-soo mentions that she bought that magical orb, which was also illegal, out of her own desire. He only allowed the purchase, but it was the girl who actually made it and paid with her money. The protagonist wanted to convey with all this that they were nothing less than accomplices in illegal acts. After hearing such things, the girl seems a bit sad, exuding a pitiful expression. But she soon agrees to enthusiastically go to the black market since it would help with world peace, as deadly poison was also used in medicine. Kang Han so then orders his friend to follow him quietly and is questioned about how he would find such an illegal place. Even having lived there for years, he had only heard some rumors about the locations since illegal merchants change all the time to evade authorities. But a novice hero, knowing more about this than a native, was quite suspicious. In light of these facts, Kang Han so asks Lanovel who he was, receiving an immediate response. A savior only holds that title because he is different from the ordinary. If he could kill the Demon King just with his bonus, fairies and dragons could probably do it too. The true value of a hero who would defeat such an enemy is not demonstrated solely in skills, according to Kang Han-so. After these explanations from the savior Nim, Lanovel informs that he understands absolutely everything. Then Kang Han-so tells him to be quiet and just follow him, even though he doesn't know the real location of the black market. But they could probably find out if they went to the bar where hero Nim was a loyal customer. The two, after a few minutes of walking, arrive at the dive bar. Slowly, the duo enters the place cautiously. There, burly men were competing in an arm wrestling match for their own lives. Meanwhile, other customers were ordering beer to drink without limits, and a man was playing a cool tune on the guitar to liven up the atmosphere. Obviously, Kang Han-se realizes that nothing had changed. Quickly, he goes to his great friend Tony, who was an employee of the tavern. The man is confused to learn that the boy knew him perfectly. He was a former assassin who had opened a bar after retiring and helped the boy by teaching him how to live in that fantasy world, being a great friend. Tony was happy that the boy had brought a very beautiful companion to his humble dive and soon offers them drinks of various kinds. Kang Han-so feels a bit tense, wondering if the promised language would work, considering that the moment he visited the place was different. He then asks the owner if any special drink had arrived that day. Tony replies that the boy was very lucky because he would arrange that for him if he paid the price he wanted. The guy had a black dragon beer that was 27 years old, which had just arrived that day, and if paired with grilled lamb, the flavor would come to life. Hearing this, Kang Han-so realizes that the next black market would be just a few hours away, and also the exact location of the place, depending on the direction in which the drink would be served. The two soon enter into a disguised discussion about bottles and drinks to avoid revealing what they were talking about. Still, after clearing up some doubts, the boy informs that he has one more. Soon discovering that the quality of the lamb was extraordinary, he could eagerly await them. Grilled lamb was illegal in the kingdom, but was sold as a main item in the black market. This nomenclature solely referred to slaves. Kang Han-so, upon learning that some were available, asked for enough for two. Finally, the boy had gathered all the information he needed to find the black market and its necessary products. With that, he eagerly opens the tavern door to leave as quickly as possible. Lanovel didn't understand why Kang Han-so was running so fast and also urging her. When questioned, the boy gets very angry, explaining that they only ate because they had time after reserving spots for the illegal auction. But the girl had said that the lamb was very greasy, and they were delayed due to the enormous amount of side dishes ordered. Putting that topic aside, Lanovel asks if her friend knew the bartender, receiving an affirmative response, but Tony was not just an ordinary server. For Kang Han-so, he was just a nice high school innocent who taught the law of the jungle, and if he hadn't become a hero, they would probably be partners. After explaining this, the boy informs Lanovel that there was another ability of a savior that should remain a secret, leaving her quite curious. At first, when he arrived in that world, he wasn't able to see the status of all the people and began to understand this after the moral teacher's words. It wouldn't be fair for a beginner to die like a sack of potatoes after choosing to battle someone powerful, but that ability still worked the second time. As a hero, it wasn't natural to have the power to see others' levels with a single glance. But Kang Han-so could know everything about Lanovel herself, such as her race, job, ability, and status. Even though she was level 200, she couldn't reach the weaker guys. But the girl was one of the highest-ranked individuals, possessing a unique and frightening potential. Lanovel finds it strange that the boy is silent and thinking so much, and soon questions him while he was reasoning about the first time in his future. He responds that it was nothing much and that they should hurry, but he is questioned again by the girl. As she was about to ask her question, a very strange man suddenly appears at the location. His goal was to steal that little bag full of money from the girl to get rich quick. Upon realizing this, Lanovel becomes completely desperate, exuding a tense expression. After grabbing the bag of money, that man runs frantically to escape without being caught. The girl's shining magic orb ends up losing its base and soon begins to fall toward the ground. Then Kang Han so notices this and acts quickly to catch it, preventing its fall. Without thinking twice, he throws the ball with high speed toward the wrongdoer. The pain of the impact is so great that the guy's eyes widen, and he screams loudly in agony with that hard thing stuck to his back. After a few seconds standing, he can't take it anymore and ends up falling harshly to the ground, unable to support himself. Kang Han so had hit exactly between the 4th and 5th lumbar vertebrae of his spine. It was likely that a herniated disc would develop right there, and if not treated quickly, a terrible pain would prevail for many years. The man's life would also become somewhat more difficult due to his weakness in the legs. That guy would definitely have a very tough decision to make at that moment. According to the information panel, that man was level 8 with the job of robbing people along with several useful skills. Kang Han-so's physical strength had returned upon being summoned, but throwing things was only effective up to a certain point. 7 levels separated him from that wrongdoer, and now, due to his advantages different from the past, he didn't need to avoid maniacs of that kind. Kang Han so then proposes that the thief return his money, and in exchange, nothing would happen to him, as the incident would be completely forgotten. But the bandit denies this proposal, very enraged by the way the boy was staring at him. The protagonist of the story soon realizes that this was exactly the experience of the last 10 years. Then the two enemies engage in direct confrontation over the money given by the king. Kang Han, so, without much effort, manages to hit the thief's eye, bothering him quite a bit due to the pain caused by the attack. And while he complained about such a blow, he ends up receiving an extremely powerful punch right in the middle of his spine. It had been exactly in the space between the 6th and 7th lumbar vertebrae again. It was the place where students often had herniated discs, and if that guy didn't want to suffer more, he would have to treat it, even already being unable to take care of himself. After turning the guy into a punching bag, Kang Han-so manages to explain the whole situation to the royal guards. Indeed, it was a secret that such a boy was a hero who would save that kingdom. Still, after days, rumors would surely continue to circulate about that, and it would be much easier for the two to move while hiding this completely. Lanovel admired the hero Nim a lot for having much experience with assassinations, but the boy gets quite angry with this admiration, as he shouldn't be treated like a killer of people. After gaining experience for 10 consecutive years, it practically became a habit for the boy to kill his opponent who seemed like an enemy. He then asks Lanovel if she knew the average level of common adult men. That answer was rank 3, seeming to be 5 if the individual was wielding a weapon. But the level of that little guy who had attacked them moments before was unusually 8. While Kang Han so tried to analyze the abilities of the deceased man, Lanovel starts shouting that she understood everything. She thought the boy had managed to notice the murders committed by the thief, quickly deciding to act to prevent new fatal victims. That brave heart, before defeating the Demon King, protected the peaceful lives of the villagers as its first splendid conquest. After boasting about his friend, Lanovel reminds him to check if his experience level has increased. Without thinking twice, Kang Han so immediately opens his information panel. Lanovel then comments that every creature in that place carried power with them, which could increase as they grew or by stealing and then consuming it. The protagonist of the story realizes that level 4 corresponded to the athletes of the land in a system where to get stronger, one had to kill, resembling nothing of fantasy. In any case, since the bandit had a high rank, Kang Han so ended up gaining good experience. He had a great feeling about the first hunt of his second journey in that fantasy world. He then continues on his way, advising Lanovel to be more careful with the money pouch, to which she enthusiastically responds affirmatively. But he soon reprimands the girl's cuteness, threatening her with a juice. After a long walk, the unbeatable duo arrives at a very suspicious location. It seemed they were being stealthily watched by someone hidden at all times, and this caught Kang Han-so's attention. Suddenly, a man appears asking if he was a customer of the famous Tony, the owner of that dive. The boy quickly responds negatively, stating that this guy was his most terrible arch-enemy he had ever faced. After hearing this response, the man orders Kang Han so to follow him. The security of that secret black market, which operated under the radar, was overly obsessive, as even the protagonist had not managed to reveal their identities. In any case, it seemed that the passwords still proved effective in the dark dealings. After a few brief minutes of walking, the man informs that everything would be right there in front. More specifically, inside that abandoned-looking building, completely lifeless to avoid raising any suspicion. La Nouvelle quickly comments that the place looked like an ordinary house, but Kang Han so tells her to pay attention to the ground there. Right on the floor was a magical transfer circle that had probably cost a lot to be placed there. The black market people were very careful and certainly wouldn't hide in the capital as La Nouvelle had thought in the past. Kang Han so soon gets stressed, with the girl easily impressed by everything she saw around and then reprimands her. After a while, the guy asks the boy to put a mask on his face, and without thinking twice, he does it immediately. La Nouvelle also received a peculiar disguise to put on her face and hide her true identity. Even though it was somewhat embarrassing, the hero, who would become known in the future, could not walk without a mask in the black market like some people did. Kang Han so then asks the guy to hurry up more and is answered affirmatively. That symbol on the ground soon begins to activate, emanating a strong light of magic. Suddenly, everyone disappears from there and is magically teleported to another place. The darkness there was immense, but the lights should be turned on carefully as the guy didn't want to provoke the guards hiding around. Kang Han so had experience going to that place on his first mission, but it used to be located under the forest in the west of the capital. After an idiot held a cult and summoned demons, that place began to be used as a black market sometimes, and the protagonist had already visited that locality as a guest. Suddenly, someone arrives there welcoming the boy, who quickly inquires about the start of the long-awaited auction. Since they didn't have much time, the guy would take them to the reserved seats after a quick explanation of how everything should occur at the event. If they wanted to place a bid, they should signal by ringing the bell located in front of their respective seats. Payment was made in advance with coins or high-value jewels, and if any problems occurred resulting in the revelation of their faces, the organization would not take responsibility. After hearing all this, Kang Han so asks if the young lady had understood all the information. La Nouvelle gets nervous with this nickname, trying to argue, but the boy immediately reprimands her. The famous beauty of the Middle Fantasy continent was an archaeologist and could not reveal her name in the dark black market. The guide, after giving his explanations, asks the duo to follow him without deviating from the indicated path. In light of this, Kang Han so asks the girl not to cause any problems there, because if she did, she would probably be burned alive by the big guards. She soon comments on the number of magical explosion circles they had there, and the boy then explains their deep meanings. Finally, after a long time in complete darkness, lights are turned on at the location, revealing several people present, along with an auctioneer on a huge stage where the auction would mostly be directed. The guide soon wishes profitable experiences for the protagonist of the work in his participation in such a secret event. That announcer then reveals that the auction was about to start in a few minutes. The first item would be a survivor from the demonic territory, very strong and veteran in the art of fighting. The scars all over his body evidenced his near-death experience after killing a demon and being saved by people from the black market. He had offered himself as a slave to pay his debt, surely serving as a great gladiator or bodyguard. Even after hearing all the qualities of the man, Kang Han so is not impressed at all. He certainly would not fall for those salesmen's tricks to persuade the buyer. The guy's luck was the only high-rank skill he had, and surely no one would be foolish enough to buy a chicken pretending to be like that. Kang Han so thought this while ringing his bell to bid on the big guy. While La Nouvelle understood the hero Nim's plan, he noticed how many fools were present at the location. In the girl's mind, he intended to buy that slave to serve as a companion out of pure kindness. The boy's expression seemed quite tense with that situation. It was like his first time because while trying to save that slave from the same family, he ended up picking a complete retard. If he had known about her problematic behavior of hating humans, he surely would not have placed the winning bid. After a few moments, the strong slave is sold, but Kang Han so asks La Nouvelle not to feel sorry for him. For the real auction would start at that moment, and if they spent all their money at the beginning, they wouldn't be able to do anything when they had truly interesting goods. That was the second item, with very silky skin, and it was the beloved daughter of a noble family that had been captured by demons. La Nouvelle tries to comment on that girl, but the hero Nim cuts him off, saying they hadn't come there to have fun or save rich people. If that girl were bid on, she would surely disrupt the auction by force without her owner's permission, insisting on freeing all the slaves. Kang Han so didn't even want to think about the work he would have to do to clean everything up afterward. After a few more minutes, another rather peculiar slave is offered to the black market customers. That guy indeed catches the attention of our dear protagonist, grabbing his attention immediately. Finally, an incredible item had appeared there, worth spending a good amount of money. The man had a rather peculiar way about him and wore only a thong to cover his lower parts. His eyes were completely empty and lifeless, with no expression other than sadness. His thinness evidenced the poor nutrition he had been receiving during his time living in the black market. But still, there was a catch to all of this. Kang Han so could see his true value. His skills and status didn't matter, but rather the level that was higher than all the other slaves. He used to be an active mercenary in the north of the kingdom. His appearance was merely the result of a lack of cooperation, but he possessed a remarkable skill with the spear. Such a slave could be a good commodity after rejuvenating. As expected, it would be a hassle to convince a suicidal subordinate to work, so that reaction was completely normal according to the protagonist. But Kang Han-so was completely the opposite, and that was definitely the perfect slave to serve him. So he immediately orders Lanavel to ring the bell, receiving a prompt response. After a few moments, the bidding for the slave was finally coming to an end. Such a splendid product is then bid on by the boy with the wolf mask for a very low price. The mercenary's level was 286, giving him the possibility to stand up to Lord Alex, according to Lanavel. This comment would make the future Sword King sad, as that moment was before he became stronger and was called by that name. The mercenary wandered through places, killing many beings, and that's why he had such a high level, even though it wasn't easy to achieve. Suddenly, the contract arrives along with the key for Kang Han-so to sign. His acquisition was already there, prepared to serve him after the purchase was finalized. Lanavel wanted to leave, but the shopping was still about to begin. After several hours, many goods were sold at the location, bought by the shady clients. Lanavel could no longer stand being in that place, but Kang Han-so wanted to wait a little longer to leave. He wasn't thinking of staying for long, as prices began to drop when the competition ended, leaving only the simple goods. The result of that day when he was the mercenary slave hadn't been so bad. Finally, they could sneak out of there. But just as they were about to do so, Kang Han-so spots something that makes his eyes shine with desire. It was a blonde elf captured on the famous continent to the south, handcuffed and about to be auctioned off as merchandise. Her mind was empty, but her appearance and pedigree were excellent, according to the auctioneer. And above all, there was even more relevant information. The elf was completely pure, with no mix at all. This presented a unique opportunity for the interested client to acquire an imported product from another country. Elves were a superior race, and the center of all human desires made it very difficult to treat all of this as a fantasy without elves. All the clients desired to compare that untouched noble elf and were completely euphoric with the desire to acquire her. Kang Han-so realized how deluded they were, and elves were certainly not the nobles they thought. Their fertility was low, with a completely low birth rate, and their sexual desire could be compared to that of a eunuch. According to Lanavel, rumors said that the defeated elves in the territorial war had fled to the deeper parts of the forest, being hastily reduced. Finally, the girl had noticed that the elf seemed quite strange. Due to the comments about the girl's health, Kang Han-so realized that she probably felt it too since she was an excellent mage. Indeed, that merchandise seemed very special and completely out of the ordinary. At that moment, the information panel highlighted all the relevant information about her, including her level. There was no reason for Kang Han-so to worry, and if he didn't buy the product, he would definitely lose out. The elf's appearance didn't matter, and with that level, she could probably face an intermediate demon without major problems. Her superior race and high skill level made her comparable to the creature the Demon King was raising, close to the medium or high rank. Her status was like an ICU. The first curse cast on her had been the work of a demonic being, leaving her mentally dead. Things after that were surely added to her after the black market trade captured her, so she couldn't resist imprisonment. After Kang Han-so placed his bid, the auctioneer announced the start of the countdown in case anyone wanted to challenge him. Probably the other competitors thought that elf was too expensive, and buying another warrior would be much more profitable. But that was because they didn't know her level, not wanting to offer a higher price than reasonable. Since there were no more bids, the auctioneer announced selling such a product to the highest bidder in the contest, and then he immediately began the countdown to close that sale. When it reached the last second, something impressive happened there at the location. Everyone present looked at it, dumbfounded and completely scared. The entrance had just been destroyed by an unknown phenomenon, even with the guards protecting the place all the time. Kang Han-so quickly realized that if the Hidden Watchers hadn't managed to stop them, it was indeed an invasion. Lanavel became desperate, thinking the tunnel would collapse and bury everyone while the protagonist tried to calm her down. Suddenly, a very strange movement began in the black market. A green magic with floating things emerged amidst that desperate situation. There were several round earth elementals floating around with plenty of mana. Dealing with these guys meant that the invaders were definitely elves, according to the protagonist of the story. The auction organizers became frantic, ordering more guards to block those invaders using magical elements. That girl soon commented that thanks to a stupid noble who had stood out too much, they managed to enter the place easily. She then ordered everyone to attack to save her dear sister from the hands of those delinquent kidnappers. A battle broke out at that moment, with the elves attacking frantically with bows and arrows. The guards of the mafias seemed useless against those merciless beings who attacked incessantly. They were supposed to protect the clients and capture the elves without leaving a scratch on their bodies, even if they killed them. The blonde girl, due to the complexity of the battle, decided to use elemental magic, and without hesitation she began to use her magical weapon immediately. Such an act ended up affecting everyone present, especially the guards who resisted so that the rescue of the elf wouldn't succeed. Kang Han-so, observing this, concluded that someone from the royal family had come to visit that market with blood in their eyes. That girl was the queen of the elves named Sylvia, with impressive specifications according to the information panel. She held the title of princess, but after the elven king died in battle, she abandoned adventures and inherited the throne without a second thought. In other words, the girl is the future queen of the elves and used to be a member of Kang Hanso's team. To save some of her kind, Sylvia threw most of them into a crisis and continued with this terrible habit to this day. She still hadn't joined Kang Hanso's group, so her level wasn't high, but since she has talent, the rank of her skills was impressive. Sylvia, with blood in her eyes, attacked her enemies, wanting to save her sister from battle at all costs. Those guys screamed in agony from the evil elemental magic used by the girl. One of the event organizers soon calls Kang Han so to leave that dangerous place. They prioritized evacuating the clients even in that extreme situation, and this made the protagonist admire such professionalism. Lanavel soon asks Kang Han so if they would help with the rescue. He then notices the girl's gaze. She really wanted to help the elves and teach a lesson to the black market, but Kang Han so only asked her to go to the evacuation shelter, leaving her very confused. He thought the idea of helping with the rescue was quite foolish. They shouldn't let the captured mercenary die so easily. They couldn't abandon a companion who would be loyal from now on. The two were the only clients who had not yet escaped that chaos. Such chained slaves ended up being dragged into the confusion, dying brutally. Lanavel should wait in the evacuation shelter with a mercenary, while Kang Han, so, the true hero, would resolve everything. Without hesitation, the two obey the protagonist's order and quickly withdraw from the epicenter of the battle. Then Kang Han so calls the auction host, who seemed quite nervous. He wanted to know why the boy hadn't left, but the boy cuts him off because he wanted to ask him a few questions. He then questions if the elf would be his and is answered affirmatively by the young man. The rule required the client to pay in advance, but the circumstances guaranteed possession of the product, and the girl's life was under his custody as well. The two should go to the shelter together since the girl had been anesthetized and wouldn't resist. Kang Han so soon realizes that the auctioneer was a very clever guy. He had noticed that the girl motivated the other elves to do that and also understood the current situation was unfavorable for both. Since the guy wouldn't have time to take care of a damaged elf, he probably wanted to pass that burden on to the protagonist. After hearing some compliments from Kang Han, the guy comments that he should attend to his other duties with all his heart. With that, he begins to act immediately against the enemies. He seemed to be just a stage artist, but he was a very powerful man. The black market guards who had just finished taking the clients to the shelter were arriving to help in the battle, and the protagonist already anticipated what would happen. The future queen of the elves would be captured and reduced to a slave right there. Since the price would drop, she wouldn't be punished for revenge, and part of the money earned at the auction would be given to the families of the guards killed in battle. Kang Han so soon arrives and greets the elf girl, who looks a bit confused. He wanted to say something straightforward at that moment. It was that Sylvia would surrender if she stayed alive. The elf responds affirmatively, commenting that that child was weak. Sylvia ended up not surrendering in battle when only the auctioneer was alive. He took the girl as a hostage. After that, overwhelmed by the guilt of putting her own people at risk, she surrenders and is sold as a slave according to the rumors heard by Kang Han. So, he caressed the face of that elf who had a rather displeased expression. That was the expression of someone ready to sacrifice themselves. Suddenly, Kang Han so makes a rather peculiar move, grabbing the girl's waist, and he kisses the girl romantically out of nowhere after removing her wolf mask. The future queen sees that with a rather astonished expression. That elf, in turn, widened her eyes because she didn't expect the boy's sudden kiss, but soon she accepts that romantic act, seeming to enjoy the peck. The heart of that elf now belonged to Kang Han so. Meanwhile, the elf thought of her little sister Sylvia. She didn't want the future queen to surrender and become a slave with a miserable life because of her. That elf wished for her sister to always live happily. She then strangely thanks Kang Han, so for that, he simply responds in a friendly tone to the gratitude. Sylvia was screaming desperately for her master in the meantime. Kang Han so could also enjoy everything because of her. He then releases the blonde girl from his arms. Sylvia watches her dear sister fall to the ground with a desperate expression. Kang Han so took care of this quickly due to what was about to happen since he had killed someone of level 852. Suddenly, the information panel with all his relevant details appeared there. Some attributes ended up being changed after that murder he committed. Kang Han so, with a psychopathic expression, comments that this system was quite bad. The protagonist leveled up in the blink of an eye by killing an elf of level 851, saving years of normal methods. Without needing talent or lineage, just by killing stronger beings using any means necessary, it would be possible to create a world where everyone could become powerful. Although it required a bit of effort and luck to kill them, it was an open opportunity for the entire nation. According to the protagonist, it would be a beautiful fantasy world overflowing with dreams and hopes, but only if he won. The auctioneer incessantly asked why the wolf-masked client had done that, but he thought there would be no problems since he would have to pay the right amount, being more beneficial to have a slave as his subordinate than to kill him most of the time. For Kang Han-so, who had a quintuple experience bonus, it was quite efficient to kill. Moreover, there was still a lot of that skill left around. Sylvia stared at the boy wielding his weapon. She questioned how he dared to do that to the master. He then stepped off the stage towards a sword that was on the ground. Without thinking twice, Kang Han-so picked up that weapon. It wasn't the type of sword he liked, but given the situation, it would be perfect to use with force and then throw it away. Kang Han-so had a current level of 165, and what he couldn't do being level 4 now seemed completely impossible. The protagonist then wished for the Master Queen of the Elves to rest in peace, for her sacrifice would not be in vain. There would be no future where the elf princess would become a useless slave. Finally, the time had come for Kang Han-so to destroy them for his dreams to become reality. He charged at Sylvia while the other elves tried to defend her. They shot dangerous arrows at the protagonist. He dodged all of them with seemingly little effort. Before, his body did not move along with his thoughts. Kang Han-so thought this would stabilize if he leveled up, as it didn't match how he was in his best form. However, all of this is very relative. According to the protagonist of the work, her abilities worked in a strange way with such horrible reaction speed, and above all, her movements were very honest. If the dagger was her weapon, she shouldn't have created distance, but rather rushed towards him. In light of these erroneous actions from the elf, Kang Han-so ended up acquiring a high-quality knife. The other elf became furious, cursing and charging at the protagonist after seeing her friend brutally killed. Kang Han-so then realized there was someone even more foolish there. Meanwhile, the girl charged at him with blood in her eyes and a sharp sword in hand. Noticing the imminent danger, the protagonist also began to move to avoid an attack. He quickly managed to defend the blow with his impressive new dagger. After that, he moved at an absurd speed towards the blonde elf, and in a few milliseconds, he was face to face with the girl. Without hesitation, Kang Han-so prepared an extremely strong strike, and soon delivered it right to the elf's face, sending her flying due to the power of the punch. Kang Han-so charged again at the elf, intending to finish the job he started. But in the midst of the fight, he felt something very strange in his body. He paused for a moment to think about what that could be. In a few seconds, he realized he had been hit by a fire attack suddenly. His bloodthirsty enemies were using this hot magic to attack him. They treated his ribs literally like barbecue, burning them mercilessly. Then Kang Han-so decided that this was the exact moment to converge the fire. He let out a wicked chuckle in action. One of the elves then fainted due to his controversial attack. The battle was frantic, and he used the friendship shield of those elves' bodies. The beings that still remained from that battle watched everything in amazement. The elf had become an example for the others not to shoot at the protagonist anymore. Even after several deadly attacks, she still seemed to move. As she continued to live, Kang Han-so dealt her another fatal blow to finish the kill. He soon decided to borrow that weapon for a few moments, since apparently no one else was using it. With this tool, he delivered a precise strike to his enemy, making her scream in great pain due to the force of that cutting impact right on her back. Kang Han-so then mocks her scream, saying that she would probably sing well too, although he could no longer hear her. Upon looking more closely at the scene, the protagonist notices something that makes his eyes widen. It was his friend literally dying from losing too much vital red liquid. Back there, Sylvia continued to observe what that boy had done to his subordinates. If the elf died of natural causes, her precious experience that should belong to the protagonist would disappear. He then promises to forget this short friendship from now on. Watching all this mockery from Kang Han-so Sylvia orders them to kill him immediately. Such remaining elves could not forgive him for his actions, and they were attacking him incessantly with the intention of killing him. Meanwhile, he thought about how easily the elves let themselves be carried away by their own emotions. They lived for hundreds of years in communities due to their longevity, which naturally made them group together like a true family. This was both a strength and a weakness because the death of their companions made them lose their reason easily. While all this war was happening, the boy was not alone there, as the auctioneer ordered the other people present to block the exit of the place. Such guards were also supposed to provide cover to shield Kang Han-so's flank. With the arrival of more reinforcements, the fight became even more difficult. The elves fought cruelly against the guards of the black market. Kang Han-so seemed quite sad due to his precious experience. Suddenly, a massive explosion occurs right behind him. Watching everything, he realizes how strong those elves remained even after suffering a lot of pressure. Sylvia, using her elemental powers, seemed to be on the verge of going literally insane. This would be the day of Kang Han-so's funeral if he didn't level up, and it was indeed not the time to fight like a complete coward. The protagonist had to battle with the determination to lose a finger or two. Suddenly, while giving his speech, an elf tries to attack him from behind. He then defends himself and expresses such rage for being cut off in the middle of his words while trying to show off. That elf ends up having to pay with her experience to compensate for her mistake against Kang Han-so's ego. Suddenly, the boy's pinky falls to the ground in quite a strange manner. Without thinking twice, he picks up the tip of his finger and puts it back on his hand, which becomes brand new again, ready to kill more blonde elves. It seemed that the member was a bit crooked, but Kang Han-so didn't care about that, thinking it was just an impression. Sylvia, observing this, thinks that the boy is some kind of dark demon. Kang Han-so responds, informing her that he feels sad about such remarks from the girls. In that place, there had literally been a massacre of magical beings done solely by him. Sylvia was the only survivor for the second time, but there was one thing different from the first occurrence. Kang Han-so's interference had drastically changed the timeline. Since they hadn't managed to take a hostage, they couldn't stop Sylvia while she leveled up, and the market almost reached the point of being completely destroyed. Kang Han-so could see how many humans ended up dying there in that battle, just by looking at the drastic level change of the princess after acquiring the experience from her victims. She had leveled up many times, but consequently, so had he. His information panel had changed noticeably after that battle with several dead. He expressed gratitude for the elf who became experienced for his benefit, but now there was only one batch left there. Kang Han-so could not lose her no matter what. Sylvia was very furious, saying that he would die along with her there on the spot. Without thinking twice, she began to use her earth elementals. Those present at the scene became desperate upon seeing that the tunnel was collapsing because of that magic. Kang Han-so knew what she was thinking and then asked her to hold on, because if she did that, the bodies of the elves would become useless and serve no purpose. Upon hearing this careless information, Sylvia became even angrier. The bodies of elves could be exchanged for a huge value. Just as virgins symbolize purity, the blood and bones of these beings meant eternity. Those dead should be cut into pieces just as butchers do with high-quality meats. Sylvia did not want to ignore her deceased companions to flee afterward, because Kang Han-so would probably turn that place into a cemetery for all. After hearing this, the protagonist found his enemy's words quite funny, because it had been she herself who invited her companions to that hellish anthill, knowing the risk that their mediocre lives faced there. With these words, Kang Han-so, using such a macabre wolf mask, manages to enter the elf's mind. She despairs, saying that everything is the demon's fault because if he weren't there, things would end well. They would probably have won the battle without any problems after that. Kang Han-so comments that all of this is a drag and that she shouldn't involve her companions who weren't ready to be defeated this way. She had also been calling him a demon for quite some time as if he were one. Suddenly, a huge noise is heard in that place. Those present are impressed, wondering why that magic stopped out of nowhere. Sylvia then screams desperately, trying to understand why her elementals weren't granting her wish. She thought her magic was protecting the supposed demon, who would be Kang Han-so. The protagonist then attacks her, saying that the elementals wouldn't protect a woman who used her friends to kill in the name of friendship, for they recognize the true hero as someone much more important. Upon learning Kang Han-so's true identity, Sylvia is left perplexed, her eyes wide open. The elementals love nature, and if they wanted to protect it, there would be a circumstance to be fulfilled. They couldn't do that without the hero killing the demon king Pedinar. So it would be much worse if Kang Han-so died and was buried alive without fulfilling such a mission. He and Sylvia certainly wouldn't meet for the third time. After the violent battle ended, the future queen of the elves ended up becoming a stepping stone for the hero. It was a privileged end for her, with everything going well and completely good. After all these fights, the inspector seemed quite dissatisfied with Kang Han-so. He, in turn, expressed a very shy demeanor, perhaps recognizing that he had messed up. Indeed, the inspector learned that Kang Han-so had massacred all the elves. Rumors said that when revenge and anger came together, they gave birth to a daughter named Cruelty, with a difficult and quite problematic existence. Doing good was as heavy as pure lead, and evil appeared to be quite light, like a delicate bird's feather. Thus, even if Kang Han-so defeated the Demon King, he would have a great challenge ahead, for it seemed that graduating would be very difficult, according to the inspector. Upon hearing these words from the respected ethics teacher, he became completely angry at the injustice, for those elves were very aggressive and had attacked him cruelly first. The ethics teacher then responds that patience leads to peace, and everything would have ended well if the boy had been patient, but he disagrees due to the circumstances of the battle. Waiting for the right time could do much more than power or anger, according to her. Kang Han-so shouldn't rush at that moment, also needing to calmly look around and report what he saw to the ethics teacher. Without thinking twice, he closes his eyes with a very thoughtful expression. He then finally comes out of that trance, saying the word experience. He thought he could kill the sword King Alex at that moment, but the teacher responds that his weak companions couldn't be seen as mere experiments. For a dwarf sitting on the shoulder of a giant could see farther than the big guy alone. And when a priest and a farmer joined forces, their knowledge was broader than any priest out there, according to the ethics teacher. She then raises her index finger to draw even more attention to her poetic words of life philosophy. That was Kang Han-so's homework. He should build harmony with a smile even if he didn't like the other. The boy thought that such a duty would be very difficult to accomplish. Then the ethics teacher begins to leave, informing that they would see each other after 2 days. Kang Han so ponders about building harmony. Now he had to worry about who that other guy was that the ethics teacher had mentioned. Suddenly, Lanovel arrives there, asking what Kang Han so was worried about. She was holding a small bag, expressing a very happy demeanor. Kang Han so doesn't seem happy with her presence, but she just wanted to help him. He argues with the girl because he had left her in the black market to send the elf bodies home, but she informs him that she had already done all that before coming back. These corpses could be used as magical materials and couldn't stay in such a place, according to the hero Nim. He just wanted them to stop being massacred and sold for such a high price. Kang Han so couldn't let others profit when he was the only one doing the real hard work, and Lanovel comments on how he was treating the enemy. The boy then asks the girl if she had taken care of the families of the guards from the black market who had died in battle, and he receives a positive response. It took a lot of work to move several elf bodies from the 5th floor to the royal palace, and it would have been great if there had been elevators there. Kang Han so had made the decision to use all the gold to buy the corpses of the magical beings at a low price and paid the officials to transport them safely. He soon asks Lanovel how the negotiation with the Elf King had gone. She then replies that she told the whole story with her magic orb, and everything had gone well since the delegation from the country of those beings would arrive soon in the kingdom. And the most important thing is that it had all been with the money that the hero Nim insisted on using. He ended up spending all his savings to acquire the bodies of the elves from the black market, and it would be difficult if he didn't have someone to fill them again. Just because he was the hero who would save the world didn't mean that the citizens would give him food for free. If he hadn't had travel funds, he would have ended up starving due to the people trying to scam him, even though it was his second time playing that game. In any case, everyone ended up missing their level during the 3rd summoning. According to them, his rank was 4, so not even the Elf King would think that his daughter attacked the hero and ended up being killed. There were no witnesses since all the guards had been killed in the black market, and Kang Han so also made a point of telling Lanovel that it was a defeat for both. Suddenly, while the hero was thinking all this, a person arrives saying that he changed his profession to a funeral agent. The man had a tough, intimidating face compared to the cute boy. As expected, Kang Han so couldn't do anything about the rumors that were running freely throughout the kingdom. This was a pretty minor problem, and he didn't need to respond to those childish provocations from others. The man then questions what Kang Han so was doing in the kingdom's exclusive training fields, to which he responds that he was just passing through. The hero Nim's debut would be in 2 days. That man was really anxious about it, and Kang Han so also showed a lot of anxiety for that much-anticipated event. At that moment, the two guys were staring at each other in a rather strange way. But Kang Han so was doing something beyond that. He was seeing with his information panel the main details of that big man at level 291. The boy then remembers the ethics teacher telling him to try to build harmony with a smile on his face even if he didn't like the other person. He quickly informs the man that he had indeed changed his job to a funeral agent, but he had done this just to make Alex's coffin more easily. Upon hearing this, the man begins to grind his teeth in so much rage that he was feeling. His expression completely changes, filled with fury in his gaze. The Sword King Alex was born very resilient. Contrary to what most thought, those who possessed skills with a weapon did not always become swordsmen. A desired swordsman in a war was someone who protected their allies while cruelly assassinating their enemies for long hours. A person who would not be isolated in the midst of battle even if left behind, and also capable of returning fleetingly with great resilience. The reason Alex will be called the Sword King is that he could protect his allies like an iron wall and also undertake solitary missions. But he would soon discover that above the monarch of the weapon is the hero Nim, according to Kang Han so. The bizarre man comments that such a boy could even defeat the Demon King with his own tongue. Kang Han so then responds in a confrontational and mocking tone, leaving a doubt in the air while Lanovel seemed desperate. The first time, the Demon King was unfortunately better with words than the protagonist, and he would have suffered a complete defeat if it had been a battle of wits. While Kang Han so thought that this time he would definitely win, the man called him, saying he could leave those 2 days behind and start guiding him from there. If he wanted to have the guy's excuses, even a day before, he shouldn't have been snooping around the black market at that moment. Kang Han so then responds that he is not in a hurry, telling the man to get out of there immediately. These confrontational words make the man even angrier and very hot-headed. If the protagonist started practicing his level, he would be exposed, and he wanted to avoid the Elf King's suspicions, needing to act like a level 4 without raising any doubts. He just had to hide it until he could enter the ancient ruins within the forest and then tell them that he leveled up there. Kang Han so had also grown quite a bit thanks to the resilience he developed in ethics classes with the teacher. If this were his own past, he would have cut the boy's throat. But now the boy had reached a point where the provocations flowed like running water. While he pondered whether he was a true genius, his subordinate called him and soon asked him about his action plan for the day. Her demeanor was subtly guarded, and the disastrous event in the black market had likely traumatized her. It's not as if the protagonist had brutally piled up a mountain of dead bodies. So Kang Han asked La Nouvelle what had happened to the new mercenary companion. Initially, the guy was supposed to become experienced for the protagonist, but since the teacher taught him not to view companions that way, he decided to give him another purpose. To discover the heritage of ancient civilizations, he had set out on an expedition to the remote areas of the fantasy world, but that no longer seemed necessary, because it was enough if he just went where he really needed to go. The mercenary was recovering well, motivated because he had learned that he would be the hero Nim's companion instead of a slave. He was in a state where he ate a lot and regained his strength very quickly, even leaving the palace chef astonished with such ability. The guy really did have a level of 286, leaving Kang Han so relieved with such tremendous effects already expected. That fantasy world was not like an RPG where it is possible to increase skills and various attributes like strength, regeneration, resistance, lifespan, magical power, etc. Thinking that the leveled up experience of 10 years was reset due to a small trip to the past made Kang Han so quite angry. The return to earlier times had convinced him, and the interests of the mentor teachers behind everything could influence various things, like resetting his levels and skills at any moment. Kang Han had managed to get a 5 times experience boost, allowing him to obtain fantastic skills if he put in a little focused effort. Magic, witchcraft, martial arts, among others, were nothing but inventions of the imagination that could disappear if a transcendental being was involved in the case. For Kang Han, science is the only truth and power that moves the entire world. He then decides to reduce his collection of equipment and dependence on them since they wouldn't understand if they were confiscated upon his return to planet Earth. The same would be done for the sacred sword exclusive to the hero, as it was unlikely that all heroes received one of those after defeating the Demon King. After thinking all this, Kang Han begins to look around, paying close attention to the place he was in. There was a man who appeared to be a bread seller with a very friendly face, and also a girl entrepreneur in the personal defense items business. There were far fewer useful shops than he thought, and because of this, La Nouvelle became quite curious to know what adventure her friend was planning now. Kang Han then replies that it wouldn't be possible to reach the next location in a single day of travel, even using the magical circle of the Space Transport Kingdom. From there on, he would need to prepare, and so the two would only depart once they received payment from the elf delegation. After all, they wouldn't be traveling on foot. The best way to travel was comfortably and quickly, even if it cost a bit more, and in any case, they had enough money to cover that. If he were a villager who left the safety of his village, or a group of shady guys, Kang Han refused to be caught wandering again. Time and safety could be easily bought with money, and that was a lesson he learned on his first journey as a hero. As the distance would be long, La Nouvelle soon informs him that the protagonist would need the permission of His Majesty and King of that entire kingdom. Without hesitation, Kang Han replies that he would definitely approve the trip because he knew very well what that little cake desired. The king would obediently grant him permission if he promised to return right after finishing his extremely important business. But whether Alex would follow them on the way was a tremendous doubt and a problem to be solved. La Nouvelle asks if the destination would be the ruins, and she is answered negatively by the hero Nim. They were actually going to meet a very powerful being. His spiritual teacher had been the bartender Tony, and this very special guy they were going to meet could be called his physical mentor. Kang Han had just met him for the first time, but now he could go much further. La Nouvelle then thinks that such a guy was an ancient dragon, but the protagonist denies this rude assertion due to the characteristics of this type of stupid flying lizard. She found it very mysterious that the hero Nim admired someone in that way, since in his eyes he always looked at everyone with disdain as if he knew everything. Kang Han did not admire those people who lived like pigs, for even with so much magic, they had not managed to develop clean toilets with flushing. Finally, when the hero Nim was about to explain to La Nouvelle what they would need to prepare for the expedition, someone arrived calling him desperately. It was a guard informing him that the Majesty was looking for him. The delegation from the elf country of Elfheim had just arrived in the kingdom. Not even a day had passed, but the elves had already arrived at the location. This might be natural considering that their precious princess had just died in battle. Kang Han was quite happy because he no longer had to wait. The protagonist just wanted to receive the money, so he asked the Majesty to handle the caravan as he wished and was soon informed that everyone wanted to meet him. Kang Han immediately declined the invitation, even though it was a bit difficult to explain such a situation to the visitors. The guard had a revelation to make about the elf delegation. It was that they were accompanied by the Prince of Elfheim. Upon learning this, Kang Han seemed displeased with the information. He had no other choice as the insanely strong mid-boss was calling him. After all this, the dark night was already beginning to fall in that kingdom. The royal palace was quite crowded with visitors. Kang Han and his dear friend La Nouvelle were also there. The girl seemed to be observing the protagonist from the corner. He soon noticed this action and questioned her, to which she timidly responded. It was the first time she had seen Hero Nim so well dressed, and she didn't know that the first prince would accompany the delegation as well. Royal elves were the strongest race that could live forever in that world. They had the basic characteristic of youth and were immune to diseases when leveling up. They did not die unless they were murdered by someone, and besides that, there were not many powerful people who could easily kill these royal members. The level did not decrease after being increased, but there were cases where levels were taken or disappeared due to the effect of special powers. Thus, this meant that experience increased in layers, making such elves strong forever. Their abilities could disappear, or the ranking could decrease if left aside for a time, but if used correctly, they could increase like levels. With all these thoughts, Kang Han so finally came to a conclusion. A monster exactly like that superior elf could certainly be born as well. The limit capacity that could be determined for a hero's bonus was up to level 999. After that, only a sign is added. Even the highest ranks stopped at this number, and therefore there was no other way but to estimate the opponent's combat ability relying on luck or instinct. Since Kang Han so was on alert against this invisible level, he decided to believe the rumors spread and invested in a long training time. However, the Demon King Pedinar was much weaker than he thought. Based on what he had gone through, this elf seemed much more dangerous, perhaps because he was not what the protagonist expected. Finally, the two enemies were very close to each other. Nasus soon introduced himself cordially, not knowing how to express his deep gratitude to the guy who had protected his younger sister and companions from his country. Kang Han so should dismiss the title of prince, being able to call the guy as if he were his childhood friend due to his good qualifications. He did not know how much that man was such a friendly and non-violent character since he had not spoken to him the first time. Based on this, Kang Han so also said it was a pleasure to meet Nasus and wished many good things for his world, as well as plenty of harmony. These words from Hero Nim even drew a shy smile from that prince. He also responded that he prayed for harmony between humans and elves to prevail. After this friendly conversation between the two boys, everyone toasted with great joy for the same purpose. It wasn't bad for Kang Han, so to get close to the mid-boss, and he was in the middle of practicing the lessons from the ethics teacher. After much partying and fun, most of the people seemed to have left the palace, leaving only empty drink cups behind. Nasus's homeland was slowly heading towards complete destruction. The current king of Elfheim kept his eyes and ears closed to the problems, also despising humans. Nasus seemed quite sad and thoughtful about the challenges he had been facing in his homeland. Living forever could be a blessing or a curse. Once one let their guard down, they would no longer be able to recognize that their time had stopped. After such remarks from his friend, Kang Han so comments on how much that guy had been drinking. Nasus feels a bit shy after having drunk too much and showing his worst side to the hero Nim, but he tries to reassure him in a friendly tone. Kang Han so liked everything more now after these events. There was nothing to criticize about that guy, who seemed to have been possessed by a modern man on Earth due to his chivalry. Surely the current king of the elves had vision problems, which is why he died putting effort into something so useless. They ended up not interacting with the humans holding the central fantasy continent, merely practicing a policy of isolation for hundreds of years. And even worse, the king of the elves had appointed Sylvia as his successor, according to Kang Han so. She truly had no way of being a queen, never having learned to have the discipline that is the most important virtue of a ruling leader. She left the kingdom all the time just because she loved to have fun at parties. Sylvia could be defeated by mid-level demons, but if a weaker human tried to flirt with her, something dreadful would happen. She was a brutal narcissist who burned them alive without any mercy. Now Kang Han so could understand the reason that made the first prince stage a coup to take the throne of the country. Nasus had told Sylvia several times not to underestimate humans, but she always laughed at his words, giving them no importance. He already knew that this moment would come eventually, but even so, it made him sad. While the prince spoke all these things, Kang Han so attentively observed his information panel. The lord's status strangely indicated that he was satisfied with such situations. That elf king preferred his youngest daughter, who looked just like him, due to his hatred for humans, unjustly stealing the succession of the excellent eldest son. Nasus, who had a broken heart according to Kang Han so, thought that her death could become the future of Elfheim. With that, he asks the hero Nim to help them with all his strength. The elves would also spare no help so that Kang Han so could defeat the Demon King. After showing all his support to the hero, Nasus orders his subordinate to deliver something still mysterious. This quickly catches Kang Han so's attention, making him very curious. That was his beloved sharp sword, Endymion. That amulet was one of the 3 treasures of the kingdom of Elfheim, and Kang Han so was supposed to return it after obtaining the sacred weapon. The world of Hero Nim seemed to have stopped in time with that unique moment in which he held a very rare sword. Even Lanovel was completely impressed with the beauty of that sharp thing. Kang Han so then bows in front of Nasus, promising not to forget his sincerity. The little smile of Hero Nim shows that his plans went far beyond that. He had no intention of actually returning Endymion, not forgetting. The first time Kang Han so helped Sylvia defeat Nasus, and even having placed her on the throne, the protagonist was unable to obtain the excellent elemental sword Endymion. That was a treasure of the kingdom of Elfheim, and the girl was not crazy enough to give it to him. Kang Han so couldn't believe he had obtained the amulet so easily. The only one capable of being king was quite different. Kang Han so felt a bit guilty for planning not to return the sword, but that didn't mean the breaking of the friendship and trust between the two friends. Prince Nasus had asked him to return Endymion after obtaining the sacred sword, but there were no plans to obtain it until defeating the demon king Piedanar. That was already enough to make mincemeat of him. Nasus was happy to know that hero Nim liked that rare amulet so much. That other thing was a sheath made from the leather of the impressive blue dragon. Kang Han so preferred a sword of the wild demonic style as they were more provocative, but that pure type was also cool and customizable. He had a strong feeling that the two would make a good team. Suddenly, Nasus calls the protagonist, praising his strength. But the mockery soon begins, as it would be quite difficult to wield Endymion with only level 4. The atmosphere becomes a bit strange in the place, and the two stare at each other for a brief period of time without saying a word. Kang Han so then breaks the silence, saying that he has always been a bit strong, as expected from Hero Nim. That guy had indeed noticed his low level quite quickly. He should have guessed that the one who killed his younger sister was that Hero Nim. If Nasus delivered the kingdom's treasure just to test this, it only highlights how frightening this guy is. How he knew that Kang Han so was weak when it came to mere worldly desires was a mystery. After a few hours, that cursed delegation of elves finally begins to leave the kingdom. The king was cordially bidding farewell to Prince Nasus and his illustrious guests. It didn't take long for the convoy to hit the road back to Elfheim. It had been a quite satisfactory agreement for Kang Han, who ended up rich again after 3 days with completely empty hands. He now held a large sum of funds for level 204 travels, and also the rare elemental sword Endymion from the kingdom of Elfheim, in addition to an almost slave-like porter and a cool archaeologist to accompany him. When the protagonist finally celebrates being able to go to the dreamed village, someone arrives saying they disagree. That guy was furious that Kang Han so could travel without any preparation. But the king was sure of the decision made and didn't want any more trouble, marking the orientation for 10 days later. Upon hearing this response, Kang Han so mocks Alex, who becomes even angrier. He wanted Lanavel to take him to the wizard's tower at that moment. The girl then begins to question whether he would really use the magical circle for spatial transfer now, also giving a suggestion for use in a possible adventure. But Kang Han so didn't need such a thing and just wanted to know the correct path. Suddenly, someone arrives there informing Hero Nim that the preparations had been successfully completed. It was his mercenary bought from the black market, completely different from when he was acquired. After washing, feeding, and adding a bit of fat, his appearance changed for the better, making him suitable to be used as a baggage porter without any problem. Then Kang Han so finally asks what the name of the hulking guy is. He is soon told that after becoming a slave, the dude discarded his old name and could be called in whatever way preferred by his owner. Upon hearing this, Hero Nim becomes a bit thoughtful. This was a nuisance because Kang Han so didn't want to waste more time with an insignificant slave. Since he was tasked with taking care of the bags while they traveled, his new name would be Baggage Porter. After giving the guy an identification and being thanked for it, Kang Han so decides it was time to hurry and go to the wizard's tower. After a few hours, they leave the kingdom heading towards the protagonist's newest venture. Lanavel then informs that they had already arrived at the wizard's tower. One could pay to use a magical circle for spatial transfer, and that name was given just to shorten and facilitate everything. According to a wise friend of Kang Han so, in his first trip, being a wizard was a job that required a lot of money for research and very rare materials. They had no choice but to live in a place with abundant resources, blending well with the city, and these were the main reasons. The ancient wizards thought of various ways to live in large cities, and the main solution found was a huge tower. In that world, buildings were no taller than 3 stories, and in that building, the wizards could remain isolated from society right at the top. Since it was impossible for them to meet women, they inevitably became superior virgin wizards as well. Then finally, Kang Han so arrives at the tower and is greeted by the girls, perfectly understanding why only a wise man could reach the level of superior wizard. The security asks for an item to prove the protagonist's identity, and he quickly hands over a seal handwritten by the Majesty. Due to the money and authority that Kang Han so had, the girl decides to guide him forward without the bureaucratic confirmation procedure. At that moment, Wizard Nim, who was sleeping like a rock, is called incessantly. After some shouting, he wakes up quite startled, asking where he should send the guys. The girl then gives him a lecture, and the wizard claims to be studying the unknown abyss, and as a way to apologize, he would buy her a cake after work. That wizard smelled like trouble to the protagonist Kang Han so. While the girl ordered him to enter the circle, he thought it wouldn't be a problem if the guy activated the spatial transfer magic correctly. After a few minutes with the whole group inside that marking on the ground, something unusual begins to happen. The wizard then initiates the long-awaited spatial transfer magic desired by the friends. That magical circle begins to shine a golden color due to the high amount of magic it was receiving at that moment. Suddenly, the girl informs them that the spatial transfer has been successfully completed, which made Kang Han so shorten a long journey of approximately 1 year. He was very happy because he also got rid of all the nonsensical nonsense that would appear during such a journey. Now the story takes us somewhere in the ruins on the first trip of our dear protagonist, Kang Han-so. There, a woman was screaming desperately for everyone to run as fast as possible to the entrance because the temple was literally collapsing over their heads. Kang Han-so was very angry at that poorly made suggestion from Lanavel based solely on her strange desires as an archaeologist. Suddenly, the girl looks attentively to her side and widens her eyes, frightened by what she saw. Without thinking twice, she screams desperately for the hero, Nim, to be careful. After that, out of nowhere, a huge stone falls in front of her, almost crushing her completely, but Lanavel ended up not being able to escape it. Upon realizing this, Kang Han so widens his eyes, displaying a rather worried expression for his close friend. After the realization hits him, he screams desperately for Lanavel, but there was no more hope. While he cried inconsolably, the woman said they should hurry because otherwise, they would be buried alive. In her likely last words, Lanavel tells her hero Nim to continue on his path. Her wish was to stay with her friend throughout the adventurous journey. In her final words, Lanavel asks Kang Han so to defeat the demon king, Pedinar, bringing peace to that strange fantasy world. The boy was frozen with wide eyes while he was urged to hurry in his movements. He then stands up, taking his first steps toward the exit of that cave. In a rush, he passes by the blue-haired boy, who was a bit confused by this. Strangely, Kang Han so seemed to display a shy smile on his face. He thought happily that this had served the girl well. She was the main reason he had been dragged into that chaotic fantasy world, and he was already waiting for the right moment to take revenge on her. Kang Han so was tired of being healed by her beauty, and this had spared him efforts, now being free from annoying watchfulness and also to have a drink alone. On that dark and cold night, the woman was already feeling quite hungry. So without thinking twice, she asks hero Nim to prepare dinner immediately. The old gray-haired man also orders her to wash that pile of stinky, dirty clothes. After finishing, he should also protect the campsite area and not forget to calculate the accounts of the supplies used that day, in addition to organizing the bags. Listening to all those silly orders, Kang Han so begins to get angry, expressing a rather unfriendly demeanor. His friends were ordering all those numerous trivial tasks because he was the only one who had time to do all of this. Since Lanavel had tragically passed away, the person who was supposed to do these things was Kang Han so. Upon thinking it over, the protagonist realizes that none of them had the skills to carry out such tasks that the deceased girl had taken care of most of the time. Suddenly, Kang Han so remembers the slave who was insulted as a biting fish. She merely says that although she seemed like a servant, she was also a princess, having never done household chores in her bourgeois life. She also gives Kang Han so a lecture for thinking of passing all the missions to a woman, which was completely inappropriate. He laments such reactions and already anticipated that this would happen anyway. He should have saved Lanavel, taking her with him at all costs. Kang Han so imagined the girl calling him to eat and crying out his name incessantly. She also asked about his physical state at that moment, being quite worried. That was a dream of rather unpleasant memories for hero Nim. He felt as if the little girl were an angel at that moment. Everyone was now in the waiting room of the wizard's tower, and hero Nim ended up sleeping right in the middle of the magical procedure. Kang Han so then wakes up relieved as everything was working well as planned. He soon feels thighs behind his head but finds it strange because Lanavel was sitting on the other side. When he turns around, he comes face to face with the slave carrying luggage bought on the black market. He said he was quite happy because his master had slept well. Kang Han so's expression at that moment was a bit doubtful because he did not expect those hairy thighs behind him. He had to endure it because if he broke the guy's legs, he would be left without a luggage carrier and would go through a situation similar to the dream. Continuing the journey, hero Nim questions whether the allied country from a decade ago had that kind of atmosphere. Suddenly, Lanavel snorts the air in a rather strange way. Kang Han so asks the reason for the sigh and if she was dissatisfied with something. The girl then replies that the journey didn't seem like a journey at all. Kang Han so, upon hearing this, becomes completely angry with the girl because he had arrived there very easily, using his money without spending a single penny. The reason he had spared her was that she could use magic in her daily life and had the ability to successfully complete various tasks. When trying to explain that Lanavel was right because it was impossible to level up that way, the slave is reprimanded by the protagonist of the story. Kang Han so had spoiled the guy and now thought he was a companion of the legendary hero Nim, but should only follow him in silence. After a few minutes of walking, Lanavel informs the protagonist that she had been through there before, and that the mercenary agency was close to the location. There could be a group of merchants heading to the same destination as Hero Nim, and that's why he should go to that place, according to the girl. Hitching a ride on a horse, helping guys who needed protection, destroying bandits or monsters on the way, among other things, characterized the missions. And Kang Han-so didn't have time for a useless part-time job like that. After saying these words, Hero Nim is incessantly questioned and bombarded with comments from his traveling friends. Suddenly, a man in the area starts shouting for help behind some brave adventurers because a monster had attacked his sales route. The truth was that Kang Han-so was in no hurry at all because the Demon King was a knight who had waited for him for 10 long years. He then tells Lanivel that they didn't have time and that if they walked with a group of merchants carrying various baggage, they would be too delayed, and he also reprimands her. Several hours later, after all this, the Dark Knight had already fallen in that kingdom. Meanwhile, the ethics teacher wondered what led a hero to avoid adventures out there. Kang Han-so replies that it didn't sound quite right, and that she would feel better if he resisted as much as he could. But that wasn't what the woman meant, promptly ordering the boy not to abuse his experience bonus and to level up with adventures, in addition to giving him moral lessons. While Lanivel asked the protagonist what the next destination would be, he thought about giving several achievements to the ethics teacher as she desired. The girl, for her part, didn't stop talking about the place they were in and the Demon King's evil conspiracy, making him very nervous. The scene of a village was the same as the memories from Kang Han-so's first time, even though it had been 9 years before. Then the protagonist knocks on the door of that little house, asking if Master Mauling was present at that moment. Lanivel and the baggage-carrying slave watched this with a rather anxious expression. A worthy hero, Nim was calling for the teachings of such a wise master. Lanivel is a bit curious to know who this intelligent man named Molang is. Kang Han-so then tells the two kids to be quiet. That was the place where the great man lived most of his days. Slowly, that door begins to open, echoing a rather worn-out noise. A girl with short hair then appears, asking who that boy was knocking on her door and disturbing the peace. She also questions how Kang Han-so knew the said Master Molang. That was the daughter of the chief of that village. Now the protagonist could see that he had truly returned a decade due to the girl having grown a lot in that time. She was an adult married with a child and expressed a lot of charisma towards Hero Nim. Now that he had arrived 9 years earlier, all the memories from the first time were just illusions, but the great being was still living in that house. Lanivel then comments on the great being for which the boy had refused all adventures and took 2 days to reach the northwest end of the middle continent. She belittled the guy just for being a slime, and Kang Han-so became completely angry about this and would not forgive any more cheeky comments from her regarding him. Many of that great being could be taken from Hero Nim with a bag from the kingdom's sewers, according to her. Upon hearing this, Kang Han-so became even more furious, saying that the girl's eyes weren't working properly because he was a slime different from the common ones. It would be easier if he could show those stupid barbarians instead of just explaining with words. Kang Han-so then asks the girl if he could hold that cute and adorable friend for a brief period of time. She expresses a rather doubtful expression, while the slime seemed to really like the idea. Kang Han-so promises not to hurt Molang and that he would handle such a little face with care. Then finally, the floppy slime reaches the hands of our beloved protagonist of the work. The boy was completely happy with the little creature in his hands. That slime was the most perfect creature he knew. The sensation he felt could not be described with words, it was so good. The human body is imperfect, basically a prison called bones and joints limited by aging with the weakness of not being able to regenerate its lost parts. The existence of Kang Han-so was a weak point, a prisoner in this form of human body structure. Stylish and desperate humans, pressured by this weakness, tried only to borrow the power of fantasy in the wrong and futile way. These things could not overcome the body that had made him a prisoner. Although it had no brain, that creature was rich in emotions and could move on its own. The physique of a slime was not a prison, but rather a spiritual type in itself, and this existence provided scientific discernment that went beyond fantasy for Kang Han-so, something that the savages of the strange magical world could not even dream of, and all the power capable of creating good things transcended beyond that limit. After reflecting on all this, Kang Han thanks Master Molang because he had not learned so much from these teachings the first time. He was tired of the abuses of the savages of that world back then, but he finally ended up engraving the knowledge in his soul. Now Kang Han-so had total control of the autonomous system. His arms were much stronger and even displayed huge veins from so much strength. The boy's skeletal muscles had increased significantly. Everyone present in that place was astonished by such a sudden change in the hero Nim. Lanivel incessantly questions her master but is soon reprimanded, mainly due to the care that Master Molang needed because of his fragility. Kang Han-so then asks about a knowledge that the savages of the fantasy world could not understand so well. Since the human body was originally based on an autonomous nervous system, some activities were automatic and could not be influenced by personal will, but a slime could have complete control over its physique, making it impossible to teach this to other people. However, there existed only one special existence that was magic all day long. Like the primitive rhythm of being soft, the knowledge could be delivered to a human. After feeling this from Master Malang, a formidable technique is established by the scientific knowledge of the real world, such as rational analysis and language. The wisdom of the institution that had been presented by Plato, this great soft being could spread throughout the world without any self-knowledge. Kang Han so had ignored the master's will and ended up realizing the noble knowledge being touched by its greatness, feeling quite grateful for it. The protagonist of the work then lets out a huge shout in gratitude to Lord Malang. Such a level of skill of the hero Nim was growing at a smooth pace, and he only had to wait now. The ethics teacher questioned his achievement on the journey, as it was a strange thing that she could not understand until she saw it with her own eyes. To obtain the almond, he should remove the hard shell, as no one would strive if they could gain skill without any effort. Kang Han, so, upon hearing all these sermons, asks why the ethics teacher was asking him this. Honestly, he did not care about the difficulties of others because he had already spent 10 years of his life for nothing, having to live everything again. She had no right to speak about effort, even if she were not a real teacher, but rather a goddess. Upon hearing these arguments from the protagonist of the work, the girl fell silent for a brief period and soon informed him that he was indeed right. She apologized on behalf of the entire teaching team as he was the first to receive an S rank in combat, making a lot of effort that soon turned out to be in vain. Now the ethics teacher would not insist on this subject anymore, once again apologizing, leaving Kang Han so surprised by this. After all this rather tense conversation, the protagonist takes a deep breath in an attempt to calm down a bit. Looking at his hand, he notices something quite cool. It was indeed incredibly efficient, according to him. Even being in an incomplete state of Master Molang's teachings, he was still able to defeat the Demon King. The next thing to be done was to create an alibi for his level 204. He had a great companion near that area, and he needed high marks in combat abilities, achievements, reputation, and personality if he really wanted to go back home. This time, Kang Han so was totally determined to graduate successfully. These 4 areas to evaluate a hero were combat skills, achievements, reputation, and personality. The powers in battle the first time had been overwhelming, being at a level where he managed to kill the Demon King alone without anyone's help. He also didn't have many problems with achievements and reputation, being explored for 10 long years by the duty of the hero Nim with missions that naturally accumulated. But now, the second time, the protagonist intended to take a shortcut for a quick graduation, not having time for certain things, making it possible to fail in some aspects. Lanivel soon asks if Kang Han so had not already resolved his matters, meeting the great slime being. Since something could happen during the journey, they should start heading back to the capital, and the protagonist knew what his friend meant. The world was full of bandits and monsters everywhere, and there was no hero in the villages near the border. Not even trained knights appeared frequently. If they could eliminate the danger for the sake of those inhabitants, that would fulfill the mission of the hero Nim, according to the protagonist himself. Lanivel thought that the evolution had not worked out, but soon felt happy to know that Kang Han so was taking on such a mission, even making the slave happy. But he himself thought that this was just a mere nonsense. He didn't have time to eliminate insignificant things, and there was a cost-benefit ratio for Lanivel's achievements, in addition to a perfect target nearby. Now the work backtracks to a negative scream from the elf princess. Kang Han so held his sword high, a bit confused by that. All the others present observed everything with quite astonished looks. During the first journey, they ended up discovering a young dragon near where the Grand Master Molang lived. The protagonist questioned a lot the fact that the princess wanted to leave such a creature near the village, which could become a major future problem. She retorted, saying that dragons were siblings of the elementals and would not allow a senseless slaughter for the sake of humans. Kang Han so, upon hearing this, showed his disdain for the girl's hatred towards the human race. Suddenly, Lanivel arrived there, calling out his name. She defended the life of the dragon because their ancient story said they were gentle creatures and generally followed their natural character without problems. Even that big brute said that violence was not the only solution to this problem. The boy with blue hair justified that a hero delivered hope and not death to such exceptional mythological beings. Kang Han so then listened to all these justifications with a rather doubtful expression. He'd already expected this from those silly people. The enormous experience he would gain from hunting a dragon and the essence that filled the heart of the animal would be of great help to defeat the much-feared Demon King. But those various things called companions blocked his path to getting stronger for 10 years and only paid attention to making sure of that. Therefore, this time, no one would disturb his graduation. Being a dragon slayer was a huge achievement in that strange fantasy world. Since that gentle animal had not hunted much, the level of its abilities was quite low, but when captured, it would give a lot of experience to the protagonist with its heart. That's why this was the perfect target to create an alibi. And moreover, no one could criticize this normal hunt. Not even the ethics teacher would complain about it. After all these thoughts from our dear protagonist of the work, Kang Han. So, night fell in the place where his group was. In any case, that boy would still have a problem to decipher. Those little people right there would be quite a clash in his plans. The two would protest against the experience standard anyway, unable to abandon them and leave. Lanovel was famous for being studious. If she died violently after joining the hero Nim's group for 5 days, Kang Han so would get a sermon again. But the protagonist, failing due to the reputation points, having to see Sylvia right after that for the 3rd time, showed the real problem. He was already planning to go to that place anyway, so it would be better to leave them there for a brief period of time. After all these thoughts of Kang Han, so the work takes us to the dark forest of the place. Horrifying noises were heard around, and it seemed there was someone protecting the area. Suddenly, 2 giant, ugly green beings appeared, making strange sounds. They were pig goblins, named so because of the appearance of their noses, also known as orcs, and in reality, they had a lot of muscles. As expected, Kang Han so couldn't understand the type of communication those buff creatures used. Many monsters like orcs were the source of experience in places where pure mana accumulated and had a low life expectancy, not even knowing how to speak properly. The duo wanted to help the hero defeat those low-quality, insignificant monsters that would try to steal his experience but were soon reprimanded. Suddenly, a loud shout of "Hey!" was heard in that place. The pig goblins quickly became quite alert to what had caught their attention. Kang Han so's current level was 204, and even if his target were a weak young dragon, it would still be quite difficult to face it, so he could increase his rank a bit more in the orc colony that was very close by. Moreover, when those scum who wanted to help at all times fell behind cleaning up the mess, Kang Han so would hunt the dragon in peace alone. At that moment, the pig goblins seemed to feel quite threatened, with angry expressions and drooling a lot. Even though they were scared of the powerful Endymion, they apparently had the desire to fight. This was probably a result of the provoke skill anyway, which was good since it would be more comfortable for the protagonist to fight this way. At that moment, the pig goblins were quite furious at the presence of Kang Han so and his powerful sharp sword, Endymion. Suddenly, they charged at our dear protagonist with the intention of ending his life and protecting their orc kingdom. Kang Han so, for his part, merely observed this with a very calm expression, thinking meticulously about the steps that would allow him to win that battle easily. Then he finally charged at his first enemy, eliminating it immediately. After just a few moments, the second enemy was also entering the realm of death. Suddenly, several other pig goblins appeared due to the loud groans of their friends who were dying slowly. Kang Han so quickly realized that there were more patrollers in that area. Any little thing would help him, even if they were insignificant. The protagonist would gain a bit of experience in a way that the teacher would like. Observing all that, Lanovel and the boy carrying luggage ran to help Kang Han so, but they were soon reprimanded because he wanted the two to stay still without interfering in the battle. They then stood there awkwardly after such a decision from the protagonist of the story. If the aggro stayed with them, Kang Han so wouldn't be able to do the job there. Those pig goblins seemed to get angrier as time passed. Several of them appeared with bows and arrows to hit our dear Kang Han so, who, in turn, merely observed all of it with a mocking smile on his face. Meanwhile, a very sharp and dangerous arrow was heading in his direction at an absurd speed. He easily defended against the goblin's attempt with his elbow, feeling no pain at all. Seeing this, the green monsters became even more enraged. Kang Han so could easily block low-level attacks with his muscular body like a bodybuilder. His skin was tougher due to the impressive techniques of Master Molang. From the moment he started using his body to defend against the orc attacks, the stamina level of his body was rapidly increasing. Kang Han so had some friends who liked to fight gracefully without being hit at any moment in battle, but that clumsy body was just a good mass of experience. Suddenly, the protagonist was hit in the back by a sharp arrow and ended up shouting from a slight pain he felt at that moment. It didn't matter how good that guy was at hiding or martial arts, because in the real world, you could never know where a blind arrow would come from. That orc archer was very scared at that moment, displaying a tense expression, almost wanting to cry from so much fear. Suddenly, he began to run unexpectedly, shouting in desperation. Lanovel wanted to help her hero Nim at all costs since she had a higher level than him, feeling obligated to do something to help. Kang Han so reprimanded the girl again to be quiet. He needed to send a live one so he could gather the rest of the gang, allowing him to find all the orcs without having to search the entire vast forest. Lanovel also wanted to clean the hero Nim of the blood of those pig goblins but was reprimanded again. Kang Han so wanted to disguise himself with that because orcs had a very sensitive sense of smell, and the dragon he would hunt later would be alone as well. After a few hours, all the pig goblins seemed quite enraged. They were gathered with torches and angry expressions, wanting to end everything. A pig goblin that seemed to be the leader of that whole gang drew more attention than the others. He was an orc fighter of approximately level 200. There was also a pig goblin sorcerer with an estimated rank of 300. The three friends observed the entire gathering from atop a hill. commenting that the band leader was probably level 400. Kang Han so claimed he would explain the strategy while the baggage handler took a brief survey of the number of beings present. The protagonist would go first through the north gate, while Lanavel would enter from the west side and the slave from the east, leaving the south wing free as they had no friendship power. The girl quickly suggests to the hero Nim reinforcements, but she shouldn't worry as that area was blocked by a river, effectively a dead end. The orcs wouldn't have a way to escape, so they would try through the gates that the duo would block, which should get them excited according to Kang Han. So, as those fools had no more useless questions, the leader decided to proceed with everything he had planned. They would show those ugly green creatures the power of true friendship. At that point in the game, they already seemed thirsty for victory to avenge their friends lost in the previous war. Suddenly, that whole herd of big guys starts moving toward the gates. Lanavel, with a rather tense expression, begins to think about the numbers. Every time something like this happened, she wondered if she had performed the summoning ritual correctly, becoming just a little worried. That little girl seemed to grow more tense as time passed and the battle approached. However, the incredible archaeologist Lanavel seemed to have a plan. Suddenly, she begins to shine with a strong aura. She was the wonderful assistant who had insisted on becoming the partner of the legendary hero Nim. After all this preparation from Lanavel, the first orc with a pig-like face charges at her. She would make up for all that nonsense of the day right then without wasting the chance she had there. She then, without any mercy, starts to use her powerful magic that she had prepared to put into practice earlier. As the girl attacked her enemies, a huge light was emitted from her powers that could even be seen from far away from the epicenter of the battle. It all looked like a massive atomic bomb explosion with somewhat impressive dimensions. Kang Han so was still observing all of this from atop the hill, thinking about that supposed bait. The strategy unit had begun to pay for the food they had eaten, and all the orcs guarding that side were heading in the direction the duo had invaded. They were very easy to read. According to our dear protagonist of the work, Kang Han So, that horrendous tent was where the group leader was, and Hero Nim had used the scum as bait, intending to reduce the clan's danger as much as possible. That was what Kang Han So wanted to say. Upon seeing the arrival of Hero Nim, that girl celebrates that a rescue team had come to save her. She would like to know she could return to Alvenheim instead of becoming barbecue and would reward the protagonist if he helped her. That was the mark that had tormented Kang Han So for 10 long years. He had a bad feeling that things would become more annoying from then on. If a person does the same thing for 10 years, they start to have a feeling even if they don't want to feel anything. An emotion that could be involved with the kind of guy who would leave all dangers and annoyances offering a small amount of compensation. Just because the opponent was Hero Nim. Kang Han so quickly tells the girl to wait quietly and that she could go home but only on her own. He wouldn't waste his time on useless things like he had done the first time, nor would he quickly destroy the Demon King. Even if he were paid extra to send the stupid elf who was caught in the orc den home, it was something Kang Han so definitely wouldn't do. That tribe leader of the pig goblins had a level of 387, according to the purple information panel, and was sleeping at that moment. His rank was much lower than Kang Han so remembered, perhaps because he had come 9 years earlier. He would make up for the lack of experience by getting rid of the other orcs and also thanked for the meal. That was the gift Kang Han so had received from the elf prince, the incredible elemental sword Endymion. That guy should feel honored to be able to die from a weapon beyond his reach and would disappear as part of Hero Nim's experience. Upon seeing that sharp sword, the girl hanging was completely stunned and widened her green eyes. Meanwhile, Kang Han so was thinking about the voices of the elementals. She, in turn, begins to say something in a very loud voice. Suddenly, the girl screams that Kang Han so was a thief who had shamelessly stolen a treasure from the elves. The guards should move because that royal rarity had been stolen. Upon hearing all this from the girl, Kang Han so becomes quite confused, thinking she was a true lunatic. Even though the elemental sword Endymion belonged to the elves, the prince had given it as a gift to the hero Nim. Suddenly, something covers Kang Han so, who had been quite noisy, completely with its enormous shadow. It was a giant pig goblin, completely enraged, preparing to attack him. That guy had become irritated because Kang Han so had disturbed his sleep, but he was also upset about his ruined plan. Without thinking twice, our dear hero Nim wields the extremely rare Endymion to attack his enemy with great force. After a few seconds of preparation, Kang Han so finally delivers an impressive blow to the pig goblin. Although it seemed frightening, he swung such a large weapon with his hand that way. His skill levels were low, posing no significant threat to the physical integrity of the protagonist of the story. Then Kang Han so orders the green monster to stay still to become part of his experience. Right after being hit squarely, the pig goblin falls to the ground abruptly due to the intensity of the impact it had received on its body. The protagonist of the story wished for him to stay just like that, sprawled on the ground. It would be much less painful if the green monster died in just a single fatal blow. The powerful Endymion was about to be used lethally in front of that hideous creature's face. Meanwhile, The elf was shouting that Kang Han-so was a thief of the elves' treasure. She was calling for someone to help stop such a thief who had committed a real robbery. Kang Han-so then stops what he was doing and begins to observe something that caught his attention. Suddenly, a lot of fire starts to take over that place for no apparent reason. The pig goblins, upon realizing this, moved frantically with great concern. Such a masked orc watched that with a rather strange expression. Suddenly, another green monster appears in front of him, catching his attention. It starts to speak incomprehensible words to the humans. After that, it begins to walk towards the masked orc, seemingly intimidating him with that. You can't understand anything from this family discussion, but that little guy really seemed to be in deep trouble. And suddenly, he takes a huge punch from that fat orc. After killing his clan friend, he starts to mobilize the other tribe members. At this point, Kang Han-so was already far away, wanting to know why those crazy light bulb heads had cast magic at the chief's tent without warning. That's why the hero Nim planned to deal with this quietly, without anyone. He suddenly realizes that sneaky elf was still there, incessantly calling him a thief. She had a level of 892, cursed with fractures and internal bleeding, according to the purple information panel. Kang Han-so then becomes confused about why such a high-ranked elf was there. She seemed like that being from the black market and smelled like a case the protagonist couldn't understand from the first time. But no one cared about her story, including the protagonist of the work. Without thinking twice, he plunges the sharp endymion into the girl's body, causing her to spill a considerable amount of vital red liquid. Seeing her current state, if she didn't receive recovery magic immediately, she would end up dying in pain without any meaning. Instead of dying in such a completely useless way, she ended up becoming part of Kang Han-so's experience, which would be very useful when he defeated the Demon King Pedinar. And it also contributed to the suppression of the Demon King and the rapid leveling up of Hero Nim. Meanwhile, the big pig goblin continued mobilizing his soldiers to finish off the enemy. Suddenly, he notices something around him that catches his attention. It was the much-feared Kang Han-so, who was already quite close to him, and he attacked him mercilessly with the sharp elven sword Endymion. Finally, the protagonist had caught that little Emo, which would also give him all his experience. After being fatally hit in his body, the pig goblin groaned in pain. After a few seconds standing, he can no longer hold himself up and ends up falling abruptly to the ground, leaving all the other monsters stunned. The experience that the hero gained from killing an elf level 892 and an orc level 387 added up to the 500% bonus. Your rank finally started to get quite high after that, reaching 346 at that moment. He was thinking of getting rid of them one by one, silently, but now he didn't have to do that, since it was a true waste of precious time, and they could all attack him at once. Having witnessed their chief die in a very ruthless manner, the other pig goblins became furious and thirsty for revenge. Without thinking twice, the whole band of orcs charged at Kang Han-so with the intention of killing him without mercy. He, in turn, was completely prepared for any attack, and even let out a mocking laugh while observing all of that. That immense herd of orcs made the ground tremble as if it were a high-magnitude earthquake. Kang Han-so grew tired of waiting for the enemies and charged at them with great speed, holding his weapon in his left hand. Upon realizing this, the orcs became even more furious and roared something in an attempt to intimidate our dear protagonist. But Kang Han-so did not let himself be swayed by those silly shouts and again gave a wicked smile with a hint of mockery. In a few minutes, several upper parts of those monsters' bodies were already flying around the area due to the impact they suffered from the powerful endymion. Kang Han-so felt as if he had returned to his level from the first time with those orcs groaning on the brink of death. The average levels of the enemies seemed only a tenth of what they were before. Suddenly, something to the left of Kang Han-so caught his attention and made his eyes widen. It was other pig goblins attacking him with huge fireballs. Upon realizing this, Kang Han-so let out a huge scream of despair, and after a few milliseconds, he was hit by those large fire spheres. After that, only a giant cloud of smoke and dust could be seen in that area. But suddenly, Kang Han-so emerged from the ashes, displaying a face with several traits of psychopathy. No matter how many times he was stabbed, destroyed, burned, or had his bones brutally broken, he managed to recover quickly thanks to Master Malim's abilities, so the protagonist was not just surviving, but he was also rapidly increasing his protection skills in a very fast way. Suddenly, someone desperately called the hero Nim's name, catching his attention. It was Lanivel asking for his help because the two fools were unable to withstand the attacks from those enraged pig goblins. The girl had no mana left, and the baggage carrier could no longer muster strength in his arms. Kang Han-so soon realized he had forgotten about his two little ones who were screaming for help in a desperate way. They were in a situation of complete despair, very afraid of dying due to the attacks from those ugly green monsters. Kang Han-so then decided to head towards those idiots who were making a lot of noise in an attempt to save them. Wherever he passed, the pig goblins fell into total despair, and most lost their miserable lives without even realizing it. After being saved, the two fools thanked the hero Nim with open hearts, Kang Han, so then called for the humble baggage carrier. He responded to his boss promptly without thinking twice. Then he was questioned about why he had worked so hard to endure as much as he could there when he could have distanced himself after dealing with the thousands of orcs. Upon hearing such a question, the baggage carrier gave a slight cheerful smile, seeming happy. Soon, the boy replied that the hero Nim had freed him from the cycle of living as a slave, and since that moment, his life belonged to him. Kang Han was surprised by this, as he had never thought he would hear such words in response. In fact, he wanted to hear such things from the beast, Sylvia, who belittled him just for being a fragile human. La Nouvelle was quite worried about the physical integrity of hero Nim, as he needed to rest while the baggage carrier wanted to return to the village. But Kang Han still wished to get rid of the remaining orcs hiding in the forest, so he sent the two tired ones away. As soon as they reached the village, they should contact Prince Nasus, and the baggage carrier had to receive payment for taking care of the attacked elf. After all this, Kang Han met with his admirable ethics teacher, who wished for his arrival at the location without being noticed and questioned that. The boy thought there were no problems until that moment, but received the unfortunate news that there were indeed bad things. As long as there was life, there would be hope, but Kang Han took the life of the poor elf without hesitation. They say that the journey of life was a walk towards death. However, that did not mean having to give up so easily. But the ethics teacher was wrong about her words, for Kang Han had not given up on the elf he met in the orc colony. The attributes of level 892 ended up becoming the hero experience of Nim, according to himself. A person with an inflexible heart becomes unhappy, and if he did not seek happiness, he would not enjoy it. Thus, the boy should take care of his new bonds. Upon hearing such words from the wise ethics teacher, Kang Han became quite thoughtful about it. Such a thing was very difficult to accomplish, according to himself. But in any case, he decided to think about it only after eating the dragon. With this act, yes, Kang Han would indeed be happy. At that moment, the much-feared dragon was with its eyes closed in a deep sleep. Suddenly, he heard some strange noises that caught his attention and immediately opened his horrifying red eye. Kang Han had found the right address, and that was indeed the lair where the young dragon lived its life in total privacy. Suddenly, walking carefully through the area, the protagonist of the story came across something that made his eyes widen with a somewhat frightened expression. It was that giant poison-spewing monster waking from its deep sleep after being disturbed by the boy. The Chaos Dragon had a level greater than 999, with sleepy, nebulous, and dark status. But in any case, Kang Han thought that the damage had not yet changed. In his first life, the protagonist of the story had been suffering not long ago. While he thought about this, the fearsome poison-spewing dragon charged at him with a very angry expression. Kang Han knew everything in his mind but kept forgetting in his own senses. All of that was a piece of cake for the protagonist of the story, as it had only been a week since he had been summoned to that strange fantasy world. That angry dragon did not care about the boy's thoughts and charged at him with the intention of wiping out his kind mercilessly. Now we go back 10 years in time, where La Nouvelle was worried about hero Nim, as he was giving his all even though it was a kind of test or training. Taunts were heard saying that Kang Han did not get up because he had many injuries and because he was a weakling without enough spirit. A week after being summoned in his first life, he suffered trauma after being beaten during training. So Kang Han did not know much about what happened and who died in that specific period of time. But there seemed to be a black dragon with 3 pairs of wings called the ghost monster Nebius. The rank had dropped significantly due to the rebirth of the demon king Pedinar. But it was one of the 5 disasters, according to the natives of that fantasy world. However, there was a catch to it all. When the protagonist of the story was traveling and fighting against the 5 disasters in his first life, he had only heard terrible rumors. After learning about these memories in Kang Han-so's mind, we returned to the dragon's cave. Without thinking twice, he turned his back on such a horrifying enemy, as it would surely change his plans. He would get out of the lair as fast as he could, completely fleeing from the toxic poison-spewing dragon. Since his status was dark, it meant he did not have much time to live, and the younger one had taken that empty place after such a creature died. Even being on the verge of death, it was impossible to deal with a monster that had so much experience, and people would laugh at the hero defeated by a dragon instead of hunting it. Based on all these thoughts, Kang Han became even more motivated not to stop running. But suddenly he looked back, noticing something that seemed to dislike him very much, displaying a shocked expression. It was the poison-spewing dragon chasing after him, almost ready to bite him with those sharp teeth, not interested in just letting him go in peace. Kang Han was very mistaken about the owner of that immense lair and would not understand if it were told, as dragons did not have interpretation skills. Their species has its own violent tendencies, and in that fantasy world, having a lot of attributes meant having taken many lives to gain experience. If it were indeed a dragon with a strong temperament, he would never let such an intruder go away in peace without first giving him a scare or literally killing him. That poison-spewing monstrosity was completely determined to kill Kang Han-so that he would never disturb its deep sleep again. Suddenly, it stopped, seeming to think of another alternative to successfully conclude its intention. After that, it lets out a deafening roar in the area. Then it spreads its impressive pairs of wings, floating above the ground like a light bird. Soon, Kang Han-so realizes that the creature's footsteps can no longer be heard, seeming like the monster had probably given up on catching him. Little did he know that the venomous dragon was already above him, preparing its poisonous breath to turn him into barbecue. Meanwhile, Kang Han-so continued to run desperately, wanting to save himself from the mess he had gotten into alone. Spotting his easy target, the dragon Nevius displays an angry expression, eager to put into practice his plan to make a poisonous barbecue of the boy. Without thinking twice, it starts to spit all the fire it can wherever the protagonist passes. In the nearby village, the walls and shelves trembled due to the vibrations caused by that war between human and hot air-spitting dragon. The kind of earthquake even makes a ceramic bowl fall to the ground abruptly, shattering immediately. Lanovel, Mr. Molang, and the baggage carrier are startled by the proportions of this unknown vibration. As they leave the house, they spot a huge cloud of smoke, becoming very worried about the protagonist. At the epicenter of the battle, only hot steam could be seen from all sides. Kang Han-so celebrates that the venomous dragon did not hit his head because if it had, he would have died instantly due to the extreme impact. Without thinking twice, he begins to utilize physical customization and maximum recovery from the injuries he had suffered. Blood pressure and liver functions increased immediately, detoxifying the poison, blocking the wounds with platelets, and enhancing skin regeneration. Thanks to Master Malang's teachings, Kang Han-so's brain was in good shape, able to block pain with endorphin control and recover quickly. That was the breadth of a poisonous skill, highlighting how incredibly skilled such a monster was. If the protagonist hadn't been lucky, the poison would have descended to the village in the mountain. Those idiots weren't such a big problem, but Kang Han-so couldn't let Master Malang get hurt in any way. Suddenly, in an unusual manner, the boy starts shouting for the old lizard in ice, saying he was blind with terrible aiming skills. He should be ashamed to call himself a king or ghost dragon. Better off just sleeping in that stupid den waiting to be eaten by worms. Since the creature had no interpretive skills, it failed to understand what Kang Han-so was saying, but there was a catch to it all. Knowing that someone could survive his poisonous breath would make the killer very nervous. Suddenly, the furious dragon Nevius arrives with another poisonous cloud nearby. Kang Han-so runs away, celebrating the fact that the creature was following him. As long as it didn't hit his head, he could create an antibody that could detoxify the poison simply. It would be a poisonous therapy for quick skin recovery. Kang Han-so succeeded in keeping the monster away from Master Molang's house, but he would probably have to maintain that for a long time. The guy was already running so much that he was quickly approaching the realm of the pig goblins. After a few seconds, he passes by, running with a happy expression. The first orcs don't understand anything of what was happening, but when they look back, they realize the extent of the big problem they had. Kang Han-so just laughs at those idiots who had stayed in the path of the venomous dragon. He said this with adrenaline and dopamine flowing within him, but had an idea of how to turn this crisis into an opportunity. Near the mountain peak, a giant cloud of poison spewed by the Dragon King, Nevius, could be seen. This was advancing down the valley at an extremely high speed, taking everything in its path. Not far from there, a group of pig goblins watched that horrifying scene. One of their leaders noticed this with enormous concern. As time passed, that avalanche got closer and closer, and the doubt of what to do with his troops soon appeared in the mind of that goblin leader. Suddenly, a very cheeky boy appears, easily jumping over the giant wall that surrounded his tribe. Seeing this, the pig orcs begin to panic, not quite understanding what was happening at that moment. Kang Han-so, for his part, displayed a very happy expression for having found the target of his evil plan. Soon, he lands on the ground successfully while the green monsters watched him, and the venomous dragon chased after him with blood in its eyes. Suddenly, the protagonist starts to run at full speed, leaving the pig goblins even more confused. As they looked more closely around the place, they realized the great mess they were in. The venomous dragon was approaching at an enormous speed, spewing poisonous smoke everywhere. In just a few seconds, that entire tribe of pig orcs was taken down by the deadly weapon of the flying monster. Even the smartest leader in the area ended up being hit by the chemical element. The ogre fighter, who had a level of 265, ended up poisoned and severely burned by the attack of the bloodthirsty dragon Nevius. Seeing that scene, Kang Han-so approached the guy who was dying, letting out a wicked little laugh. This had been an experience that the ghost dragon king Nevius had lovingly prepared for him, and he would fully enjoy this meal. It didn't matter how much damage was caused, as the experience would only be received by whoever dealt the final blow to the agonizing enemy. Based on this, Kang Han-so was quite happy, letting out even more wicked laughs. Avoiding the dragon's attacks, everything around became poisoned by the skill, suffering greatly instead of the protagonist, and thus applying the final blow would grant him the experience. After thinking about all this, Kang Han so noticed that in the sky, that fire-spewing flying monster continued to soar and roar loudly. It seemed to be searching for the protagonist of the story everywhere, being very attentive to every location. Kang Han so hadn't planned so much, but the two ended up forming a great team. Upon finally finding his target, the Dragon King Nevius began to spit out another absurd amount of poison, intending to hit the boy. Without thinking twice, the protagonist started running away, while the monster chased him with a thirst to kill. The powerful roar of the Dragon King Nevius was very loud and could be heard kilometers away. It didn't take long for the sound waves to reach the nearby village in a terrifying manner. After everyone realized the magnitude of the problem they were in, even bells were rung to warn the entire population of the imminent danger. Everyone became desperate upon understanding that it was an attack from the Ghost Dragon King Nevius happening at that moment. The people needed to evacuate to a safe place, as it was a huge risk of death, and only the Dragon Hunter could save them. In just a few seconds, the sound of the wings of the Ghost Dragon King Nevius approached the village in a frightening manner. The people there had their first visual contact with the horrifying creature. It observed all those fragile people with a very angry expression, thinking about what to do. Then it decided to spit more poisonous smoke all over that place to take the lives of those present. As it put its plan into action, a huge cloud of poison quickly engulfed the area. Consequently, it caught all the residents of the peaceful village who were not expecting this at all. Meanwhile, Kang Han so continued running a lot and realized he had passed something. It was good that he managed to increase his adrenaline concentration to the extreme, but the downside was that it severely limited his peripheral vision. So the protagonist decided that the best thing would be to focus on not losing his experience. A little further ahead was a blue cyclops of the human-eating species with a level of 633. Without thinking twice, Kang Han so quickly attacked the creature using his powerful sword Endymion, intending to steal the creature's experience. In addition, he also attacked other beings present, gaining a very high number of levels. After experiencing a bit of the poison from the Ghost Dragon King Nevius, those high-level monsters fell to the ground like trash. Meanwhile, the rank and attributes of the protagonist rose very quickly, leaving him quite excited and a little crazy. That powerful flying monster was the first to give him everything so easily. The two guys truly form a good duo even without wanting to, traveling across the fantasy continent day and night. Even the demons couldn't stop those two. Not even the powerful high-level monsters had the slightest chance of stopping them. Soldiers, knights, and so on were as if they were nothing to the two powerful enemies who helped each other. All the useless things had been swept away like dust in front of a vacuum cleaner. At that moment, Kang Han so celebrated the refreshment with a very satisfied expression. In just a few days, his level had almost reached the limit. If he wanted to grow more, he needed to have a war with the Demon King to gain a lot of experience. Suddenly, the protagonist heard a loud roar from the Ghost Dragon Nevius that immediately caught his attention. Upon looking more closely, he noticed something rather unusual. The infamous Chaos Dragon, better known as the Ghost King Nevius, was lying on the ground completely finished with no reaction whatsoever. Kang Han so had a lot of fun with that little guy while they were together running through that strange fantasy world. His friend, after flying for many days, ended up falling due to his extremely advanced age. Even after a few hours, only poisonous smoke could be seen in that place. Little by little, our dear protagonist of the story approaches the Dragon King Nevius, who had been chasing him for several consecutive days. After arriving in front of the horrifying monster, he stares at it for a few brief moments without saying absolutely anything. Meanwhile, the creature was agonizing on the ground, still displaying a rather furious expression that frightened anyone who looked. That old man couldn't escape in any way, according to Kang Han so himself. The dragon had chased him until he was completely dehydrated and had dislocated his joints. Despite being very old, he had to be strong to be called by name. The two hadn't spent much time together, but Kang Han so enjoyed leveling up, forming a new important bond as the moral teacher said. But amidst all this, there was a problem according to him, that it would tarnish a bit of his reputation. The protagonist of the story then found himself in front of the Ghost Dragon King Nevius, observing all the destruction caused by the two. Everywhere, there was poison in the form of smoke taking over the air, along with large holes in the ground. In some places, many bones of beings affected by the destruction were scattered along the way, evidencing an apocalyptic scene. Because of this, the ethics teacher complained a lot to Kang Han, who merely justified himself with the actions of the Demon King that left humanity in shock. Both little guys were quite scary, both the student and Petinar. Even though some time had passed, the ethics teacher couldn't interfere at all, and it would be a problem if things worsened uncontrollably. So she decided to wait for the battle to end completely. But in the end, peace also ended, and in light of that, the end was far too early to exist. This was the northern and western continent of the strange fantasy world, and this was the southern and eastern area of the same, well-defined on the map. Although half of the continent had been destroyed by the furious dragon King Nevius, the other parts were all fine with 90% of humanity preserved. As the ethics teacher had told the boy not to give up, he still had hope in his second life, being the virtue that heroes needed. In any case, even if he were a famous horse, he shouldn't stray from the path, and this only happened because he blindly trusted his knowledge, according to her. This Kang Han so couldn't deny, as he thought there would be a new creature, but in reality, it was an old man near death, no longer having to worry about his character. He tried to gain heroic feats and ended up ruining his reputation, but there was still something left. Probably the ghost dragon King Nevius knew that if he returned to his nest and rested a bit, he would be fit to live another year well. Kang Han so then asks the creature was satisfied, having fought until burning out, and is soon answered in his strange language. Suddenly, the ghost dragon King Nevius begins to move, putting our protagonist of the story on high alert. That big guy was slowly rising, getting up from the ground in a critical state where he was. Kang Han so was completely impressed by this, as that creature had never had the power to lift its head. That was what he called domination using physical strength. Our dear protagonist of the story, wielding the sharp Endymion, also informs that he had fun with the ghost dragon King Nevius. At that moment, the monster was staring at him with a rather dark look, trying to say something indecipherable in the language of humans. Even though Endymion had the power of the element, it shouldn't be so easy to kill a being like that. All of this had happened because the ghost dragon Nebius had fought a fierce battle that destroyed half of the entire continent. Based on all this information, Kang Han so decides to thrust his Endymion into the horrifying monster with the intention of ending its life. But upon piercing the creature's skin, he realizes something that causes him tremendous shock. The ghost dragon King Nebius seemed to be putting a last plan into action to try to save his life. Suddenly, an immense amount of poison is released into the area by the monster in an attempt to immobilize Kang Han so. In a matter of minutes, the entire place is covered by dragon poisonous smoke. Kang Han so is then impressed by Nevius' spirit, comparing it to the demon king Petener due to the flood of poison. The same, after a few seconds in the poison, begins to let out several malicious chuckles. The life of the ghost dragon king Nevius and his enormous power ended up becoming an experience that flowed through his body. It was no surprise that the creature was the monster of chaos, as the race, name, status, and abilities of Kang Han so were based solely on that. Suddenly, the boy notices the existence of a mosaic on his skill screen, highlighting madness of level SS and muscular strength of rank S. After a few moments, the ethics teacher appears at the location and is soon questioned about this by Kang Han so. She, very impressed, then responds that such a thing was totally impossible. There was no chance that the hero candidate was hunting the Chaos Dragon. That opportune moment for forming bonds was when the creature ended its life and returned to nature. And this couldn't happen due to the reputation that Kang Han so would gain, which left him with many thoughts. He just wanted a young dragon he could handle to gain experience, and if he had known who the true owner of the den was, he would never have gone to torment him. But he ended up going unknowingly, capturing him by chance. Suddenly, the ethics teacher asks student Kang Han so to wait a moment. She then asks him what he was doing at that moment, and he begins to explain. He was trying to discover the identity of the mosaic skill he had obtained on his own and had a question to ask the ethics teacher. The dragon heart had the monster's ability, being the law of that strange fantasy world, and if the boy used such an organ, he might have a clue. But the ethics teacher says she can't do that, as this had never happened before in all of history. She soon uses another metaphor to tell the boy that it was better not to touch it until the superiors researched it. The ethics teacher also informs him that she would try to find out about the mosaic skill as quickly as she could, and that the boy should wait for her to return with the answer. He then begins to reason that the ethics teacher was very inflexible, knowing nothing. That Pandora's box existed because it needed to be opened at some point, and if it didn't need to be unlocked, nothing should be inside. But what made this happen were the teachers, and this instinct to do things that shouldn't be done led humanity to wisdom, according to the protagonist. Based on all these thoughts, Kang Han so decides to scratch the lottery ticket immediately. At that moment, our dear protagonist of the story held the dragon heart, which was as big as his own hand. It contained the powers and abilities of the ghost monster king, like flying through the mountains. Then finally, after spending some time holding and staring at that rare organ, Kang Han so decides to bite into it. It tasted like something between raw liver, jelly, and steak tartare. Suddenly, after savoring that thing, Kang Han so feels something he had never felt before, making his eyes widen. Many things were passing through his mind at that moment, including vivid images as if they were real of the ghost dragon King Nevius. His eyes exuded the poisonous smoke of that horrifying monster, causing him to enter despair. The chaos ability that the ghost dragon King Nevius had was writhing inside the body of our dear protagonist. His physical characteristics also changed drastically as a result. That feeling of having his body inside a blender was probably the pain that a master of the forest or swords desperately sought. This was the process of becoming stronger and the very pleasure itself, according to Kang Han-so. The protagonist was screaming in pain at that moment, with the soul of the flying monster flowing through his veins. He was not the type of idiotic pervert who would endure that. Since Kang Han-so had increased his endorphin emission and seemed to be in a surgery with local anesthesia, becoming quite bored with it all. Not even the soul of the ghost dragon King Nevius could stand that boy anymore. After several hours, finally, all that ritual seemed to end successfully. Then at that same moment, Kang Han-so does not hesitate to open his information panel. Soon the boy notices a certain obvious change in his skills. They had apparently changed for the better due to the ritual. The rank being marked meant that the skill was activated, and Kang Han-so didn't care about that name since the effects would probably be wonderful. Then the protagonist opens the skill bar, feeling quite puzzled about a message that was there and the reason the rank effect was mosaic again. That information told him not to forget something still mysterious, resembling more of a system bug. Well, honestly, he didn't care if the effects weren't good. This made the great teachers who sent people back create a big confusion, leaving Kang Han so very happy just thinking about it. The protagonist of the work, after reasoning about all this, starts to let out evil chuckles. Now he would keep in his memory the wonderful sensations he had felt and would immediately return to the village where the great being lived. After some moments of journey, Kang Han-so finally arrives where his friends were, leaving them euphoric. He was too late, and the two fools thought something had happened to that little guy. Kang Han-so soon realizes that his friends seem quite worried about his physical state. He then questions the origin of that delicious food, being told that the elf funeral agent had delivered those rewards sent by Prince Nasus. Then the protagonist of the work is very surprised to learn this information. He didn't like that those two were eating with his money, but since Master Moleng was happy, he wouldn't say anything to such idiots. Kang Han-so is soon questioned about what he was doing, as everyone ended up worried without news from him for a week. The boy, upon hearing such a question, becomes very confused because no one knew what he had done. Laneville affirms this fact since he hadn't said anything about what he would do on his mission, making it impossible to guess. Then she comments that the ghost dragon King Nevius, who hadn't appeared for 500 years, finally showed up, leaving Kang Han-so quite excited. It was a great disaster that made everyone feel like they were in a true apocalypse, and based on that, they ended up thinking that the protagonist had died in the midst of the incident. They really seemed to know nothing, treating everything in a strange manner. Many heroes from the continent had tried to defeat the dragon, but none succeeded, and half of the continent became uninhabitable, being a great disaster before the Pednar. Upon hearing such words from the baggage handler, Kang Han-so thinks about humanity still having hope. The hero had leveled up, and the Dragon King ended up becoming a combo, crossing the continent on an adventure that left no survivors. If there had been people who noticed the situation, they would see the enormous ghost Nevius as a mere tiny dot. Even if they could see the protagonist, there weren't many people who knew the face of the newly summoned hero, and to make matters worse, there was black poison on his face. Kang Han-so had given up halfway because he turned half of the medium continent to ashes, fearing greatly that his reputation score would be ruined. But there was still hope because without survivors, there would be no witnesses, much less a tarnished image. Kang Han-so wanted to increase his reputation and achievement score as quickly as possible, so he starts a communication for his two silly friends. Without hesitation, Kang Han-so informs them that he had defeated the ghost dragon King Nevius all by himself. Upon hearing this information, Laneville and the baggage handler are completely stunned. The two seem unable to believe that the hero Nim had defeated the ghost dragon King Nevius. Kang Han-so told this fact to Laneville and the baggage handler, inventing a story in a somewhat deceitful manner. But in any case, the part about the ghost dragon king spending his last days peacefully would be edited because if revealed, it would ruin the protagonist's reputation. The two fools did not hide their perplexed expressions at the impressive feat of the incredible Kang Han-so. He had dealt with the 5 disasters alone without anyone's help, and that made his friends proud. Kang Han-so thought they wouldn't believe it, but the baggage handler had already noticed his extraordinariness at the auction house. But besides those two, probably no one else would believe it, and 10 years ago, the protagonist was a low-level rookie who refused to kill. To gain more reputation points, he should capture a big one in front of a huge audience, specifically a monster larger than the 5 disasters. Kang Han-so really wanted to capture a giant, but his friends didn't understand such a desire. He then explains that one of the 5 disasters had caused all that damage, and it was the duty of hero Nim to get rid of them as quickly as possible for the good of that nation. That's why the protagonist of the work would secure his fame and reputation points without hesitation. After deciding this, Laneville arrives to inform him that there was only 1 day left for the orientation with Mr. Alex. Kang Han-so becomes quite nervous upon receiving this information because he had completely forgotten about the Sword King. With so many concerns about reputation and fame, this commitment had slipped from his mind, including the promise he had made to the guy. At that moment, the protagonist of the work showed his deep gratitude to Laneville because if it weren't for her, he would be in a lot of trouble. The girl asks the hero Nim how she should beat the Sword King Alex so that others recognize the good work done. She had been informed by the elven funeral agents that Prince Nasus had ordered something. In this case, the dead elf they had cared for was someone very important. He was one of the guardian warriors of the Queen of Elfheim, and something even more shocking existed. Upon revealing that there was another in the black market at that moment, Kang Han-so's question about how he knew this. She hadn't investigated much, and even with the long life of elves, it was quite rare to have any above level 800, as they were not a combat race like dragons. The average rank of elven society was around 100, so if they reached such a high score, they would already be enough to be part of the royal guard of the supreme leaders. As Kang Han-so already knew, there were many annoying things, and with that, he decides to call for Lanaville immediately. She, quite excited, responds promptly and soon receives an order from her hero Nim, but she still had several things to say, even though Kang Han-so wanted her to keep it to herself. The Elven King, having his wife stolen by a high-ranked demon and inspecting the guards who had indeed disappeared, was not the protagonist's concern, according to himself. After a while, Kang Han-so notices that the two fools were looking at him strangely and soon questions this. He is asked how he knew this and then explains that he had been a hero for 10 years and could know the rest just by hearing the beginning of the story. Lanavelle was just like her first time, bringing several boring problems. He had already dealt with this and wouldn't solve everything alone again. Suddenly, the pretty girl questions Kang Han-so about something she sees in front of her at that moment. Pointing to that road, she indicated that someone was rushing by in a hurry. The wheels of that carriage were spinning so fast that they seemed to be at the speed of light. The poor horses were also receiving many lashes from the driver to run more swiftly. After a few seconds, the reason for that guy's hurry appears, chasing him. An arrow is then shot towards his beautiful carriage. That weapon hits the means of transport with enormous power, damaging the body. Realizing he was being targeted by arrows, the man panics, fearing he wouldn't be able to escape for much longer. Kang Han-so observed everything from the top of the hill, thinking he had seen that fancy carriage somewhere, while Lanaville thought it was a robbery. Without thinking twice, he begins to use his incredible physical control. After a few milliseconds, he widens his hero eyes, activating the power of enhanced vision. Analyzing the location using that ability, Kang Han-so notices something that catches his attention on the fleeing carriage. It was a symbol he couldn't forget, bringing back some memories. The logo seemed to be the personal mark of the second successor of the Sacred Empire, better known as the Princess near the border. And the reason why such a high-ranking person would be pursued in that location was basically due to a political purge. This meant that her uncle seemed to have succeeded in the coup just like the first time. In any case, the Emperor of the Sacred Empire would die after 5 years, according to Kang Han-so. Given these facts, he considers that he had the capital of the place through which Niveus had passed, not being entirely his fault. Suddenly, Lanaville calls the hero Nim, saying they had made a promise to Lord Alex but didn't have enough time to help those in trouble. Then Kang Han-so points to the sky, saying that it was a heroic act because Niveus had become a zombie dragon and was heading to that location. With that, the two fools panic, wanting to evacuate everyone from there quickly. This gives our dear protagonist time to activate the SS Poisonous Breath skill, and without thinking twice, he springs into action, launching poisonous liquid at that beautiful carriage. In a few seconds, a massive ball of poison quickly approaches the vehicle, which ends up causing a terrifying and highly poisonous explosion. After the smoke cloud settles a bit, several lamentable scenes are revealed, like the little horses murmuring. That beautiful vehicle had turned into mere pieces after Kang Han-so's attack. Even the princess seemed not to have survived the poison ball. Meanwhile, Kang Han-so finishes lying to the fools and claims he was mistaken when he said he had seen a zombie dragon. The wise emperor of the Holy Empire initially tried to keep his brother at bay, but he grew his power by removing his niece from power after the king's death. As a result, the heroes group temporarily became the legitimate successor of the Holy Monarchy, saving the princess who was suffering from assassination attempts. They completely destroyed the power of the usurpers using brute force. Without a doubt, Kang Han-so must have noticed when she made them kill the guys without any mercy. Then the protagonist of the story makes a comment saying he has never been so cursed in his life, catching the attention of the girl who worries about this. All the people were dead at that moment, and thus the usurpers would be in total peace. Kang Han-so also comments that half the land was in ashes, generating curiosity in the fools that went unanswered. The princess who managed to take the crown had begun to doubt everything and use her brain to rid herself of the opposition group, ultimately being assassinated in the end. Since it wasn't Kang Han-so's fault, the incident was merely to avoid missions that were meaningless and also a reparative act for a mistake made the first time. Our dear protagonist at the beginning of this chapter was very stressed about the act they wanted him to commit. He did not want to take the life of such an apparently unknown thing. He had said it was difficult to kill monsters that resembled humans, but Lanavelle had understood everything a bit wrong. That guy over there also seemed to be a pretty tough opponent to face due to the fear Kang Han-so presented. Mr. Alex, seeing that, comments that his efforts seem to have been insufficient. In the Imperial Court's training guidance, he should have taught the hero Nim about the spirit of battle, but he celebrates because it was still not too late for that. Then Mr. Alex decides that he would train Kang Han-so a bit more. Hero Nim had just recovered from the trauma suffered in the last training, according to Lanivel, but the trainer seemed not to care about that. According to him, Kang Han-so's strength did not depend on techniques or levels, but rather on the spirit of never giving up when difficulties arose. That place had not changed at all since the Ghost Dragon King went wild, as the heavens had helped them by making such an act go in the opposite direction. According to Lanivel, it seemed that the Majesty had the blessing of the gods, but all of this was thanks to the very clever Master Molang. Lanivel soon comments that they were lucky to arrive there in 2 days, but were still a day late, which should be reported to the king. The Majesty of the kingdom at that moment was scolding Kang Han, so for not keeping his promise, appearing a bit nervous. But he soon calms down, telling the protagonist not to worry about such a trivial promise since he was a hero who should save the world. After resolving the delay, the story takes us directly to the Imperial Training Court, and the guidance that Kang Han-so was waiting for with Alex had already begun. The guy was defaming him in every way, saying that the kid had girl-like skin without wounds due to not having undergone proper training. But Kang Han-so should not worry because he would become the best swordsman in all that kingdom after the rituals. And the best part of all this would happen in no time without the need to spend many months. Kang Han-so was a bit behind compared to the first round, but there were still several spectators present. Those priests were crucial for Alex's violent show because they healed the victims so that the man could continue beating them without any mercy. After reasoning all this, Kang Han-so asked the brute if he would really evolve in a short time. He has answered positively because they could not lose such a precious opportunity. Everyone was on high alert because they did not know when the Demon King Pidunar would attack, and even if it cost dearly, Hero Nim had to be trained swiftly. The best way to increase his skills was to train as if it were a real duel, and that is why Kang Han-so was quite afraid of dying in the midst of it all. Then Alex becomes furious with such fear because he controlled his strength efficiently when fighting with beginners, and there were also priests who would not hesitate to take care of him. It seemed that Kang Han-so was making silly excuses to escape, but he had no right to flee because the fate of humanity was at stake. After hearing all this, the protagonist of the story becomes quite alert, knowing that that bastard was eagerly waiting to give him a tremendous blow. Upon checking the guy's information panel, he realizes that the status of the same was malicious. Kang Han-so had not seen this in the first round, so he decides to call for Alex immediately. Logo saying that this guy needed a lot of training because with his level 292, it would be impossible to learn anything useful. In a sincere piece of advice, Kang Han-so also says he had swept the orc colony besides killing the ghost dragon King Nevius completely alone. After hearing all these provocations from the kid, Alex falls into complete silence for a few brief moments. Suddenly, he shouts, trying to find out if the knights had also heard all those ragged lies from the protagonist of the story. According to Alex, Kang Han-so was making that up because he didn't want to train, and such attitudes resembled quite a bit to the foolish king of that kingdom. Seeing his own abilities, the protagonist of the story realizes that he would only be no match for an army of approximately 1 million Alexes. The mysterious black box power acquired after killing the ghost dragon King Nevius was rank F and therefore was well below on the attribute list. But that message telling Kang Han-so not to forget something still remained a great mystery to be solved. Suddenly, Alex approaches the protagonist of the story, telling him not to say anything before attacking in a real battle, as he should always be alert to the surprises of the fight. And this occasion was happening at that very moment. Then Kang Han-so realizes that the guy was saying the same thing as in the first round, however, aiming for very different parts of the first fight. He distracted the boy by giving him punches, trying to make him unable to escape as the main strategy. The guy, in a childish manner, aimed for Kang Han-so's lower regions, intending to make him feel a lot of pain in that area. If he aimed for the stomach, the hero Nim would surely show him the power of resistance, but he would feel like a fool if he didn't hit there, so he couldn't let that happen in any way. So without thinking twice, Kang Han-so defended himself by delivering a huge sweep to the brute Alex. All the spectators present were astonished to realize the audacity of that seemingly fragile boy. Not satisfied, Kang Han-so tells Alex to stop bragging and get up because in a real fight no enemy would wait for him so mercifully. Totally finished and thrown to the ground, the man curses the protagonist of the story, highlighting his anger at being beaten like a little child. Crawling on the ground completely defenseless, Alex tries to shout that he would kill Kang Han-so. According to the protagonist of the story, he would be called the Sword King in a few years. But at that moment, that man was just a weak human fighting to defeat 1 or 2 low-level demons and trying to teach others, even with a low rank. After thinking this, Kang Han so pulls the knight leader Alex by his hair, quickly commenting that the man hadn't trained enough and still tried to teach others, judging them by their appearances or mere silly speculations. He also says that the wise hid their true abilities and actions because all fights had a 50% chance of victory for both sides of the coin. As Alex was a true idiot, he completely ignored this law, giving possibilities for a quick death. After giving all these moral lessons to the guy, Kang Han so rubs his face on the ground with considerable force. The priest then intervenes, saying that at this rate, Alex might die, but the boys seem not to care much about that due to the dimensions of real fights. At that moment, the brute lamented losing to the kid after receiving a valuable lesson and completely denying reality. It seemed that continuing the lessons would be difficult, so the two would skip them and have the most important lesson since Kang Han, so was a good, respectful teacher unlike that man. Then he asks Alex what was of utmost importance in a real fight, making him very tense. After a few seconds of silence, Kang Han so delivers a strong blow with extreme power to the little guy's neck, who screams in pain due to the impact. Then finally, the boy reveals that it was very important to get rid of future problems immediately by cutting them off at the root right at the beginning. After such events, the ethics teacher arrives, astonished to learn that Kang Han so had killed the princess and the powerful Sword King. He, in turn, feels a bit awkward with the woman's arrival. She had told him to take off his hat in front of the past and his coat in front of the future. Such a boy could not ignore the flaws of the past and had to free himself for the future. The ethics teacher, after giving this moral lesson, asks if Kang Han so couldn't head towards a better destiny for having failed just once. He promptly responds that he wasn't sure about a more promising future, but she shouldn't worry about failures since no one had noticed the noble's assassination. All of this would be good for the innocent plebeians of the kingdom because a paranoid princess blinded by power would be crowned if she weren't killed by the hero Nim. According to Kang Han so, that was the easiest and most practical solution to implement at that moment. After giving such explanations, he shows anger towards Alex, highlighting that he still hadn't detached himself from what had happened the first time. According to the teacher, the greatest victory was triumphing in the boy's heart, and if he got angry, it wouldn't be wise to logically give a new chance to stubborn people. For tolerance was the greatest virtue of a successful hero, Nim. Upon hearing all this, Kang Han so mistakenly thinks that the woman was going to tell him to endure the Demon King as well, but that would be neglecting the reason behind his existence. After all this tense conversation between the two, the boy tells his ethics advisor to just wait and see what would come next. At that moment, Alex's eyes were being opened and poked by the priests. His pulse was also checked to see if there was still a heartbeat. After all these checks and pokes, both priests displayed a rather tense expression regarding the situation, and they finally confirmed that the great trainer, King of the Sword, Alex, better known as the Imperial Knight Leader, was dead. All the spectators of the battle present at the scene were completely stunned by this unexpected death. How the strongest swordsman in the kingdom did that without thinking was a mystery to everyone. Suddenly, Kang Han so raised his hand to get their attention, soon advising them not to worry about it. They shouldn't feel anxious just because the man who protected the nobles and the kingdom had tragically died during a simple training session. For the powerful hero Nim, Kang Han so was still there to protect them at all times without the slightest hesitation. Even with this firm speech from the protagonist of the story, the crowd remained somewhat tense about the situation. The ultimate weapon he had trained for 10 years as a hero, better known as the shining smile that brings a feeling of tranquility, ended up not working. This shattered Kang Han so's expectations, as he had been quite confident in his strategy. Analyzing the guys, the boy realized they weren't afraid because they were powerful. Rather, they were filled with rot and a lot of dirt. Alex was a jerk whom Kang Han so would kill without a second thought if given another chance, but he also led the royal knights, making it a great loss for the kingdom. Since the boy had killed the guy without any regret, he would take responsibility for the consequences, soon deciding to gather the horse warriors. These guys were still very shaken by the loss of their leader and were then threatened by Kang Han so. He was trying at all costs to instill some discipline in that group of fighters. In just a few seconds, the hero Nim's wish was fulfilled, and all the guys stood together in soldier formation. Seeing that he was indeed instilling discipline, Kang Han so let out a slight mocking laugh. He then began to say that Alex had died during a heavy training session, and that this was something that could happen sometimes. The most important thing in the real game was not violence but intuition, according to the hero Nim himself. And by ignoring such facts, Alex ended up dying completely negligently. With that, Kang Han so asked in a very dark voice if anyone there also wanted to die for not understanding the laws of life. Upon hearing such a question, the soldiers became even tenser, displaying fearful expressions. Since no one had responded, they probably understood, and that atmosphere of respect for hero Nim had taken 10 years to build the first time. Kang Han so's instructions would end there, and at that moment, all the soldiers would rid themselves of the problems that were making that kingdom suffer greatly. With that, he decided to suggest that anyone who hadn't understood raise their hand to be cut off in exchange for an answer. As no pulse was raised, it indicated that the crowd had received the message correctly, as expected from true knights of the royal elite. At that moment, they would split into two teams. Half with Lanavel and the other part would follow along with Kang Hanso. The goal of the girls' team was to reach the queen's country house. If they opened the third room, they would find a secret passage inside the purple closet, and following that path, there would be a court. Upon hearing such information, Lanavel already imagined arriving at the location with her group of gorillas. The girl imagined the queen eating a chocolate man while the protagonist was giving more instructions on the steps to be followed in that mission. When discovered, the priestess falls into despair along with her subjects, who become quite confused, advising her to flee the location. Then the woman becomes very angry after the men reveal her true identity in front of the potential enemies. Finally, Kang Han-so finishes the instructions, authorizing the queen's death if she resisted, as she would be executed anyway, and the others were to clean the castle. After guiding his new soldiers, the protagonist of the story begins to invade suspicious locations. All those little guys there should be arrested, as such children belong to the High Judge. Soon, Kang Han-so is questioned about this justification for arrest, but he simply evades the question to avoid answering it. Normally, that was a job for which he should be paid, but it ended up becoming his responsibility after killing the former leader of that cavalry, Alex. Even if the barbarian Sword King wasn't there, Kang Han-so would clean the kingdom until it became completely peaceful and crime-free, ensuring there would be no problems. The protagonist would show his skills to the citizens of the Sacred Empire who criticized him during training, which makes the teacher question his change of heart. Kang Han-so is surprised to notice the presence of the girl, then asking her to take a look, ensuring a good reputation score due to the hard work done. Even though he had been kidnapped in that barbaric fantasy world, he still solved many problems, most of them completely free of charge. Honestly, the boy claims he didn't solve the issues perfectly, but at least he was aware of many of them that haunted the kingdom. Those well-hidden problems that stayed under the radar but also had their own solutions. After explaining all this, Kang Han-so asks the ethics teacher if it wasn't great that he could compensate the citizens after the death of the brave warrior Alex. Before everything turned into a mess like the first time, he would resolve all the problems well in advance. Kang Han-so, arriving at another location of strong suspicion, orders everyone to stand still, as he and his royal knights had come to deliver justice. The noble present questioned what they were doing with him, knowing of his high purchasing power, but Kang Han-so didn't care about any money, simply ordering the arrest of the thieves. Now the story takes us 5 days into the future after such events, where the majesty of that kingdom was desperately called upon by various people. Everyone wanted to be saved, claiming that the hero Nim was completely insane. Kang Han-so had learned a lesson after volunteering for free the first time. There was a significant flaw in the system of that barbaric fantasy world. The bourgeois were very angry with the hero Nim after being humiliated in front of various powerless plebeians. The level system usually had useful effects like preventing aging and increasing stamina when ranking up, but having level 5 was enough in that world. But the problem was that there were limited methods to gain experience to level up, which is why many people killed unjustly. Those interested in living a long life found ways to boost their level. Such warriors just needed to do their jobs right due to the many battles. The problem was the scholars who had no connection to wars, and that one had been killing villagers since adolescence, getting captured in the 6th year on a mission. He sacrificed parents and daughters to stay younger, getting caught in the 7th year the first time. And the guy was captured for the same reason in the 7th year the first time. Still, that dude tried to justify it by saying that the hero Nim wanted to make a political maneuver. Kang Han-so was about to throw them into the ocean, letting them drown to death, but he found a better solution to protect the environment and pay for Alex's life. Without thinking twice, he calls for his luggage carrier, and he is promptly answered. The hero Nim then asks if the guy had heard how much he liked experience points, receiving an affirmative response since the dude knew that very well. Even if Kang Han-so finished cleaning up a person like Alex, he needed to keep the waters clean. Based on that, the kid decides to give that kingdom a new cleaner who could replace the deceased, granting a bunch of points to the luggage carrier as bait. In a few moments, that dude was already attacking a noble A with blood in his eyes, showing no mercy whatsoever. After a quick battle, the bourgeois dies, yielding several experience points to the luggage carrier. That hand at that moment lay on the ground of the place already lifeless due to the enormous amount of vital red liquid it had lost in the fight. The population was very happy that the hero Nim was giving the bandits what they truly deserved as punishment. Kang Han-so could finish the annoying missions of search and revenge from the first time in one fell swoop, coming out ahead easily. But executing those lesser nobles was just an appetizer after having worked hard to bring the guests to the main path. Some of the crooked bourgeois were screaming for mercy at that moment, claiming to be completely innocent and not deserving such violence. The queen, who had been captured for worshipping the devil, cried out in tears, asking why Her Majesty had abandoned her in such a delicate moment. A girl imprisoned for committing crimes in the battle for the throne threatened hero Nim, saying he was a criminal defaming the royal family and would pay the price for his actions. The useless mouths of those people who had been imprisoned for murder, stock, usury, etc., were an endless nuisance and caused many people to suffer. Since they were the children of the worshipper of Satan, such acts seemed understandable to Kang Han-so. He soon ordered the execution of all those evil people who dared to call themselves a sacred royal family. Suddenly, the baggage handler arrived there asking if Kang Han-so could give them another chance, leaving him incredulous with such a desire. The guy then justified that the royal family was very sacred in that kingdom and it would be an alarm to execute the queen and all her successors. Such actions and punishments seemed a bit too much in light of the acts committed by those poor souls. Kang Han-so then thought that it was a very stupid and weak thing to say in such a barbaric way. Hero Nim suddenly exploded with rage, saying that the baggage handler needed more education and that if the queen's successors were spared, no one would trust him. The royalty was a worshipper of Satan. The princes were the children who had sold the country to demons, and all the citizens knew of such traitors to the homeland. And that's why the baggage handler should execute all of them without mercy or pity, fully in accordance with the laws of the kingdom. Without thinking twice, the guy wielded his sharp spear to complete his mission of punishing the Satanists. After a few seconds of preparation, that little guy put his entire plan into action, taking the lives of the girls first in a very sinister manner. At that moment, Kang Han-so was in a hurry, ordering the man to finish off the princes as well. After a brief period of time, the baggage handler had taken care of the entire royal family completely alone. With that, many experience points were gained by the guy quite easily, without the need for much effort or dedication. Kang Han-so hoped that the princes wouldn't fight in hell and would listen to all their mother's advice. After they were denounced as worshippers of the devil, no one complained about their executions since the royal family was facing a trial as well. Everyone was waiting for the act of justice from the guy who was gaining a lot of points with the deaths, becoming a good high-level hero with the help of the experienced Kang Han-so. After reasoning through all these things, the boy immediately called his faithful friend, the baggage handler, and said that now he needed a perfect wife to keep him company in moments of anguish. The guy was quite confused by this and was soon informed that he would be king in place of that arrogant little cake and should bring peace to the fantasy kingdom. That chubby monarch had become useless because the queen had been executed according to the law and not locked in a cell to rot for several years. It seemed he planned to resolve everything by inventing a story that the woman ended up being killed by a demon to hide her in the dungeons along with the princes. But the biggest problems the first time were the men, and it wouldn't be logical for Kang Han-so to leave those trash when he had to purify the kingdom. And at that moment, it was the final stage of bringing a new guardian to the city, completely purified, without thieves or robbers hindering social evolution. A few moments after all this reasoning from our dear protagonist, the castle bell rang to catch the attention of the kingdom's residents. Kang Han-so soon asked why the baggage handler was making such a sad face when there were so many guests looking at him intently. He indeed had to smile because it was his long-awaited day of glory. At that moment, the baggage handler was calmed by Kang Han-so because he thought he wasn't enough to become a good husband. For he had killed the princess's family. It seemed rather strange to marry her after all those incidents. Kang Han-so, upon hearing these words, explains to the guy that everything had been within the law and that those family members still lived in his heart as useful points of experience. And the princess could not shake off the suspicions of being the daughter of a devil worshipper, even though she had done nothing wrong. So surely the guy was more than enough. The baggage handler should trust that wise hero Nim without doubting any of his words. Even after hearing all that advice, he still feared the possibility of being poisoned by his companion on their first night as a true couple. The news of the mass purification of hero Nim spread quickly across the continent, and at that moment, a party was being held in the wedding hall. That gray-haired man informed everyone to pray for the eternal victory of the savior of the homeland. He had brought a small gift from the heart of the empire to aid in the subjugation of the demon king Petinar. After receiving that, Kang Han-so felt a bit unwell because he didn't need such luxury. The focus of that day should be on the princess and the baggage handler who had just married, not on him. Surrounded by dozens of gifts, Kang Han-so mentioned his intention to visit the guy's empire one day to thank him for his sincerity. Upon hearing this, the gray-haired man panicked due to the discomfort he was causing. Kang Han-so should not worry about visiting his humble kingdom at the end of the fantasy world, for there was no problem in the empire that required such a waste of time. In fact, the citizens lived happily with the low crime rate of the place. According to the man, that was a magical armor crafted by the best blacksmith masters tailored for Kang Han, so to fight against the demon king, Petinar. The two also entered into a conversation about hero Nim being single and having a princess waiting for him to become the king's son-in-law, but those plans were denied by the boy. The former emperor had passed away, But the Holy Empire was at peace, and Kang Han so could not be disturbed as the nobles were already exterminating the pirates that arrived. Our dear protagonist, after hearing the man convincing him not to go to the paradise of the islands, found himself lying on a pile of many gold coins. He hadn't started his mission because of this, and that was why everyone felt so guilty after the acts of bravery. Lan soon arrived, noticing that Kang Han So was having fun, which was better than being depressed in a corner alone. Upon hearing the girl's words, our dear protagonist then asked her why she was so irritated. Without hesitation, she explained that the ancient heroes Nim were respectful and kept a total distance from the riches offered by the people. Kang Han so then retorted that they couldn't fix everything and leave when they finished their savior work, and he was just trying to cheer himself up. The protagonist soon began to reason about the magical armor from the Masters, the treasure of the Empire, and the impressive magical sword Endymion, and also about the incredible rare level-up potions he would use if his level were around 300. Now he had to find an effective way to get rid of those trinkets. Then suddenly, the baggage handler arrived, very nervous after being called by Kang Han so abruptly. Without thinking twice, the protagonist began to give him all those weapons received as gifts, including the incredible resistant armor forged to fit his body, given by the gray-haired king of the islands. In a few seconds, the baggage handler transformed into a soldier of the highest level. Well-equipped, he seemed to have come from another world to protect the citizens of that fantasy kingdom. The baggage handler even felt embarrassed to receive all those gifts, but Kang Han so gave everything with his heart. The only mission of the guy was to take care of all that equipment and rewards responsibly. According to Hero Nim, he should also keep in mind one very important thing that could only be said once. He should get rid of the equipment by using or selling everything, but with one caveat. Those rare potions for level up should never be sold under any circumstances due to the chance of falling into the wrong hands. And if the baggage handler were caught selling those, it would immediately become experience points for Kang Han, so, with no possibility of a second chance. After hearing the ominous threat from the all-powerful savior, the guy affirmed that he remembered the instructions and promised to fulfill them with total success. Now that the donation was over, Kang Han so finished paying his debt to the fantasy kingdom. If the baggage handler had been equipped with those gadgets, he could have taken Alex's place without worries since the hero Nim had already cleaned up all the trash in the kingdom. Since there was nothing else for the boy to do in that place, he called Lanivel without thinking twice, and she got quite excited. But Kang Han so quickly informed her that he wouldn't leave there no matter what, breaking her moment of happiness. Lanivel was only supposed to follow him and needed to tell the others what she saw and felt because he would show what it meant to be a true hero, Nim. She soon tried to figure out what the boy was planning, using a cute expression that ultimately failed because Kang Han so wasn't falling for it. Suddenly, he grabbed the handle of his powerful Endymion, stripping it of its protection, and he spoke about the very difficult task of achievements. Lanivel, upon hearing this, felt a bit confused but would know everything if she followed the boy on his mysterious adventure of preparation for graduation. Kang Han so had gathered several achievements in the first round, including finding lost kittens, harvesting in place of the old folks who live alone, seeming more like a farmer than a hero Nim, and he had also delivered love letters for the lady of a shy guy who couldn't do it himself. None of these actions were noticed by anyone and were not worth money, making it wrong to summarize them as self-satisfaction since rewards like pride were for his peers. Kang Han so was merely losing his mental sanity and accumulating a lot of stress with all these exhausting tasks. But now those things wouldn't happen because he would choose missions that were clearly good achievements and always benefited him. He had to wait another year for his sponsor to send several tasks, wanting only to win another event as big as the defeat of the Dragon King Nevius. Arriving at such a place, Lanivel quickly asked why the hero Nim was there, being told it was all just about problem solving. They were in the square in front of the magical tower in the capital of Elfheim, better known as the Land of Fairies. Lanivel also asked what the problem was in that place since they were quite tough on humans. It seemed that Kang Han so was planning to conquer her, but he found it strange to hear that from his companion. And without hesitation, he affirmed that the girl was completely correct about her assumption. Upon hearing this, the girl let out a shy giggle after hitting her theory, but suddenly her smile faded from her face, giving way to a look of worry and great fright. Lanivel became desperate thinking about how Kang Han so would conquer that land alone and was then reprimanded by him. While he thought about how he had been able to walk with someone so foolish for so long, someone welcomed him to the kingdom of Elfheim. It was Prince Nasus, who had been eagerly waiting for Kang Han, so after reading a message informing him of such a visit, the protagonist of the story felt grateful for having access to Elfheim authorized, but the monarch said it was an honor to receive him there. At that moment, the incredible Elven banquet was taking place. It was an event that Kang Han so had attended in the first round, so he wasn't very impressed by those things. Lanivel, on the other hand, seemed to dislike it all, expressing a rather nauseated expression. Kang Han so, meanwhile, found the banquet delicious, and soon reprimanded the girl for her unnecessary comment about the well-prepared dinner. Elves typically did not use leaves or meat when cooking, only grains and fruits in their main diet. They believed that the elementals would become irritated in response to pain and fear when they killed an animal or tore a leaf from a living plant. Sylva used to enjoy cooking meat when she hunted animals alone, according to Prince Nasus. That was why she often irritated the elementals quite shamelessly without feeling embarrassed about such acts of blasphemy. Her brother was very worried about who such a rude girl would marry in the future. But now Prince Nasus no longer needed to worry about those things. Kang Han so then thought it would take all night if they were to speak ill of Sylvia, since he already knew the girl's desire for meat due to having traveled together for 9 years. The future queen of the elves was incredibly impulsive and uncontrollable in a violent way. Perhaps she consumed meat because she didn't care about the anger of the sacred elementals. Kang Han so then commented that he felt nauseous thinking about all of this. Soon, Prince Nasus looked at his physical appearance and said that the boy seemed to have gotten stronger. Kang Han so confirmed this information, thinking that the guy remained sharp as ever. The Prince Nasus offered a drink to the boy while commenting that he couldn't believe the heroic feat of the protagonist in killing the ghost dragon King Nevius with so little. That great wine was made from the fruit produced every 100 years by the elemental tree, according to the guy. They thought it was the perfect elixir to serve the legendary hero Nim, who easily defeated the ghost dragon King Nevius. Kang Han so thinks he was much better than Sylva, who did nothing when she became queen, and he also feels guilty for having defeated him in the first round. Upon observing the place more closely, our dear protagonist realizes there is one more person he remembers. That was the guard who protected Prince Nasus in the first round, being the third most powerful warrior after the Elf King and him. The success of the boy's coup was only possible because of that half-elf fighter, according to Kang Han so. Even though the Elf King was the strongest in Elfheim, he would be powerless if the second and third most powerful warriors attacked together. She had held the entire group of heroes completely alone with an incredible synergy between combat senses and was an undefeated Class S, but in the end, she was defeated by friendship. Kang Hansa didn't care about her name and only remembered her as Elf A. Then Prince Nasus soon introduces Ares, his most trusted knight, who, despite being a bit inflexible, understood the strength of humans very well. That girl's grandmother was human. Her talent and skills were proof that earthly beings and elves could interact peacefully without social wars. Kang Han so quickly understands that this is why the girl participated in the coup and that the current Elf King and Sylvia were extremely racist towards humans. So this meant that Prince Nasus knew very well the real meaning of all his actions. Suddenly, someone arrives there, fighting quite stressed upon seeing who the boy was getting involved with. That guy called the boy depraved for having turned the palace of Elfheim into a den of disgusting monsters. There was only one person in that entire fantasy world who could speak so rudely and disrespectfully to Prince Nasus. He was the feared father of the boy, better known as the supreme leader of the elves and also of the kingdom of Elfheim. Now, Kang Han so knew whom Sylvia had inherited her somewhat toxic temperament from. Prince Nasus, noticing his father's anger, asks for calm, as he was only receiving the hero Nim in the palace of Elfheim with all the peace in the world. But the guy gets even angrier because our dear protagonist was just a mere mortal human and shouldn't be there at all. This was the first time Kang Han so encountered him after his death in the coup, and soon the boy reasons whether he should check the level of the guy's abilities at that very moment. So Kang Han so decides to open the information panel and is immediately shocked to analyze all that data. That was the strength of the Elf King and all his abilities. If compared to the guy's race, he seemed like a mere elf who managed to reach level 999. But the opponent was the leader of beings who had lived for many years with an incredibly high rank, very furious with his emotionless son. He tried to make the boy feel bad at all costs for the death of his sister, Sylvia, and the fear she had experienced at the end of her life. To Kang Han so, it seemed that the guy's abilities and judgments had been ruined because he had sat on that throne for too long. Prince Nasus, without thinking twice, says it wasn't the human's fault that his sister Sylvia died. The arrogance in ignoring the presence of a paradise above paradise naturally led her to ruin, according to him. If she felt fear and humiliation at the end of her life, she finally managed to perceive reality, even if it was too late. In addition to saying all this, Prince Nasus also reveals something about the fact that she had grown a little at the end. It was that all those tragic events deep down in her heart made her happy. Upon hearing these words from Prince Nasus, the king of Elfheim's eyes widen in rage. Then, burning with fury, he says that boy was no longer truly his son for thinking such a thing. In a few seconds, he forms a giant dragon with all the anger he felt. According to the very trash, such pests invited should be swept from his sacred kingdom immediately. The king of Elfheim stared at all those people with an extremely furious expression, instilling great fear in anyone who looked at him. But suddenly his expression changes abruptly upon noticing something unusual in that location. It was the sacred sword of the kingdom of Elfheim and Daimian, piercing him in a vital point of his body, more specifically right in the chest. The fire dragon that such a brother had summoned there also feels this sudden attack within himself, and after a few seconds still alive, he ends up disintegrating into small flames, disappearing completely. Prince Nasus then approaches His Majesty slowly, in a tone of respect for the deceased. His face reveal is certain happiness with what had just happened before him. Meanwhile, Kang Han so mocked the situation, saying that the impressive, sharp sword Endymion had accidentally slipped from his hand.